Well, we're 3 minutes after, so we're going to begin our presentation today. Thank you for all who are joining us. Welcome to the IPAF North America Annual Professional Development Seminar for 2022. We're disappointed that we continue to have our streak of virtual meetings, but even without COVID, this is an effective means for reaching all of our training centers across all of North America without travel cost and limited disruptions to your work schedule. So we welcome you all, and today's session is being recorded, so those who were not able to join due to conflicts will be able to view this presentation at a later point in time. For those of you who are here, thank you for being here. You'll notice that there is a chat button and a Q&A button. If you have an issue during the presentation, Diego is kind of our course administrator, and you can type a message over him you can't hear or any of those types of issues. But if you have a question about anything in the presentation, we'll answer those at the end of each session. So if you have any specific questions, you can put them in the Q&A tab and enter those in, and we'll try to address those as we move through each of our segments of the presentation. So today's presentation will be presented by myself. I'm Tony Grote. I'm IPAF's North American Regional Manager. My partner in crime, Diego Bustamante, who is the North American Latin American representative, who is here to help all countries and assist us. So if you have issues on the technical side, you probably have already met Diego. And we're pleased to have us joining from our UK team. We have Martin Wraith, who is joining us from the UK. Martin is the IPAF Rental Plus Scheme Manager, and he's going to join us to present a session. And we were going to have Giles Council, who is the IPAF Global Operations Manager, join us, but he had a personal conflict today, so he will not be able to be joining us. I do want to thank our sponsors who make these events possible with no fees to anyone who's attending. First one is Sirius Lab. Sirius Labs is a company who is a member who has been working with IPAF in the development of courses using VR simulators. So when you hear us talking about VR simulators in some of our programs, Sirius Labs is our partner who we are collaborating with in the development of those courses using that technology. And we'll hear about them in a little bit. And our second sponsor is Skyjack, who is just simply reliable. They're a great partner, great manufacturer. They were IPAF North America's first member and have been with us over many years and supporting us both in the North American market and globally. And with that, I'd like to have you see a quick video from Skyjack. Good job. Skyjack, simply reliable. Okay, so we're fortunate to have a very well-seasoned, experienced, and knowledgeable team to support the needs of our members and training centers. And I just want to make sure that everybody was familiar with some of the names. Obviously, we have myself and Diego, who hopefully all of you are familiar with. We have Dan Moss, who works with us. He's out of the Chicago office area, and he's the global technical standard. So when it comes to standards, he sits on ISO standards and works on those. Megan Ackley, she is actually out of our Chicago office as well. She's an administrator. So in the past, when you had to order any training materials, Megan is the one who would take those orders and get that material shipped out to you. Giles, as we mentioned, the global director of operations for all of IPAF. For those of you who have been doing training and sending things through, Susan Foster is our global training operations manager in the UK. We have Paul Rodis, who is the global training manager. So when it comes to the ideas and changes and development of our training courses, Paul Rodis is the person. We have Brian Parker, who is the global safety and technical manager. And Brian is out there managing things like the accident reporting portal and all of the technical guidance that are developed. And last but not least is Peter Douglas, who is IPAF's managing director and CEO. So the one most important team member that we're missing is you and the people who are on the ground training all of the world users of mobile work platforms. And if we were here in person, we would be doing introductions and letting everybody who's here doing those self-introductions and doing a little bit of networking. But that is one of the downfalls of having virtual meetings. That becomes a little bit more cumbersome. So we'll just pray that in 2023, we'll be able to meet face-to-face and get all of us out and networking as we used to do things face-to-face in the past. So with respect to your time, let's begin with our presentation. So in this session, I'm going to be talking about some key topics. The ePal application that you should all be aware of by now. We've been sending email out to all the training centers, so hopefully you're all familiar with it. I'm just going to give a brief overview of that. Diego's actually going to be doing a full presentation on that in the afternoon session. We're going to do a review of the changes to the training manual for 2022. We're going to review a little bit on instructor renewals. That's something that we have been, I get a lot of questions on, so I just want to go over that with you. We're going to talk a little bit about annual audits, and Martin actually is going to go into detail on his presentation on some of the results from audits. We're going to do a brief overview on some new and updated training courses that will be released this year, and a little bit about the VR simulator recap, and finish with the projects that we're planning for the coming year. So at this moment, as I said, all of the training centers should be well aware of and implemented the application for the ePal that was sent out earlier this month. You should have received several emails. If you haven't received them, please let us know. Put that into your notes field or into your chat field so that we're aware of that, and we'll make sure that you figure out why we didn't send you out those communications. But the ePal application is going to be covered in detail, but I'm going to go over a few key points that I think are important about this major change. So the ePal is a huge step forward towards digitization of documentations of training, and also supports another one of IPAF's goals, which is sustainability. Let's get rid of paper. Let's get rid of cost of shipping and moving things around. So we're eliminating paperwork and associated shipping, and simultaneously we're lowering your cost and speeding up the processing time to get the actual PAL card into the hands of the operators. So there's no longer, you have to process it, and then we have to make the cards, ship them to you, and then you have to get them to them. Right now, push a button and they'll be on their app. The operator safety guides is another item that we have to sell you, and now it's going to be included in the application fee. So you've reduced all the handling of all of that, and now that's going to be immediately available to all of the trainees and operators moving forward. They're going to have it physically with them on their smart application. So it really is a great tool, a good reference tool. And we all know that these books get lost and people don't have the reference. And we all know that no one's going to lose their smartphone. So it's always going to be with them. So I think that's a great aspect. The other item that's out there is we had the logbooks, and unfortunately, we all were aware that people were not using those, because when it came time for renewals, nobody had one, nobody filled them out. And now having the digital logbook will really do some I'm going to say some really good things, because now you have the ability to document familiarization, documenting the actual use of the equipment. So how experienced is this operator? How often is he using these things? So I think it's a great tool, and we really want to, and especially through our training of operators initially, is get them to understand these tools and get them using them. And then coming next, as I mentioned, it's part of our ongoing desire for sustainability. We want to eliminate paperwork as much as we can. During the course of this year, so we're going to be developing digital forms for our assessment booklet, meaning that you'll be doing your testing for both the practical and theory digitally. And not only just having that available digitally, we'll be able to usurp information from those, do reports from those things. So I think it really is going to enhance our training globally once we get all of that in place. As I said, the expectation is that will probably happen hopefully by year end of this year. So each year we receive comments from instructors, training centers globally. All of those go to our International Training Committee. They get requests for changes, enhancements, updates, and those happen in addition to the requirements from changes in regulations and standards that are mandatorily pushed into our training programs. And so as we go through those things that are accepted by the International Training Committee are then implemented by staff. So we develop the changes into the course. And then in the beginning of the year at the PDS in January, those are introduced. And then by February 1st, all the training centers are set to implement all the new changes that are introduced for that calendar year. In past years, we've had a lot of changes, truthfully, because as you know, we've had some significant changes in the regulations and standards in the US and Canada. So those changed our course material and lots of other changes that were associated with it in our overall program. This year, I'm going to say that we really don't have a lot of changes since we made so many significant changes, but we do have a lot of things that are going on with IPAF overall, lots of changes in courses. But I'm going to talk about those things that are going to impact us directly here in the North America market first. So again, the majority of changes are with new courses and updates, and I'm going to talk to those a little bit later. But first, I'm going to go into what's happening in the program itself. So many of you, when you first came on board, you needed to name a nominated instructor, or if you had an independent instructor, you needed to have an association agreement. We have now eliminated the need for a nominated instructor. Simply, all we're going to do is ask for a name when we go to do audits. And typically that was the nominated instructor who was assigned to that. Now it can be anybody who you want to have moving forward with that. Additionally, we end up having a gap. We used to have, you used to have to do your practical within 30 days of when the theory was completed. With COVID, we gave a little bit more leeway. We went to 90 days and we've decided to maintain that. So that will be a permanent gap that you have now between the completion of the theory course and performing the practical. As we now are introducing the EPAL, that has to be integrated throughout the standard as appropriate to make sure that we're addressing the EPAL and that process compared to doing the process of manually issuing out the PAL card or the wallet PAL cards. One of the things that became a question mark was we always use the logbook as the gap to give a temporary permit for someone who went through the operator training course before they got their PAL card. So that normally took several weeks for us to get the PAL card in their hands. So we use the logbook, the logbook to do that. And as I said, now that we're going digitally, what we're doing is we have a new format here, which is a temporary permit that you can write out and give the operators at the completion of the course so that they have at least a temporary permit for operating the equipment in the interim tool when they get the actual PAL card or now ePAL card. In the past, we had when you had translation and reading difficulties, which was an optional form, it's now a mandatory form. So if you end up having someone coming in with a translator, we actually need this documentation completed as we're moving forward. So that's something that is becoming a permit requirement. So in the European markets where you end up having countries that have various languages, it's a much more prevalent issue, but obviously we have people with different languages in this market as well. So again, be aware that these are the changes that you need to make sure. Again, there's really nothing that you have to do at this point on the nominated instructor, but knowing that that's going to go away. Know that now you have 90 days between theory and practical. The EPAL and the changes that are going to go with that, and Diego's going to go over those in more detail. You have the accessibility of a temporary permit for an operator between the completion of the training class and them getting their EPAL. And again, the translation forms. While there are no changes to the audit process this year, I want to talk a little bit about it because what I have seen in the last year is we are doing more training in the North American market. And as a byproduct of that, we are now disciplined to deliver more audits. And as a byproduct of that, most of us, when we first start our training centers, we're not thinking about a year away or when an audit's going to occur. So I want to make sure that everyone's aware of the fact that these audits are a requirement. So one is there's a value to our audits. One is they are really one of the things that separate IPAF training program from all other training in the marketplace. You have a validation of the delivery of compliant training. So while people go over and say, I'm doing it right, you end up having IPAF as a third party coming in auditing to validate that you are doing it right. So if you've ever been through an audit, you'll find that you are sometimes having what we call faults that we identify to even enhance us doing things better. The next thing is it refreshes and IDs required processes. So not everyone trains every day. So the fact that you go over there and you train and you may be 3 months or 6 months before you train again. Yeah, obviously, if you don't use it every day, you lose some of this fluency with it. And it's a refresher, and IDs are required processes. And all these required processes for us in our program, it's what is the strength of our program. It ensures that we're doing all processes and procedures appropriately. And we reinforce all of the procedures that we have in place. So if there's questions like, why are we doing this? It really is identifying those processes and talking about this. And Martin is going to go over this in detail when he talks about these issues that we have identified. So there's no surprise. There is a fee to have an IPAF order to come out and complete these. These fees are well defined to all training centers in their initial offer letter, so that when we come over and said we're going to be doing an audit, there is a cost to doing those things, having somebody out doing it. IPAF is committed to completing more audits, and you'll be contacted by an IPAF audit before these come into place. And as I said, you'll then decide who you're going to assign with that, because in the past we said it was the nominated instructor. Now it's anybody who you deem is appropriate for doing that. And ultimately, this is a service. It's intended to improve our performance. It's not an opportunity to catch you doing things wrong. Much differently than it's a way for us to improve the way that all of our training centers are doing. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So when we hold a PAL card up, it is the essential way of us saying that every time that training is delivered, it's delivered consistently and compliantly, and it really is what adds value to our program and what you are presenting in the marketplace. So again, that's really kind of my summary on audits. So this should be a selling tool for you, because it is the differentiation that we have in our program than anybody else out in the marketplace. Everyone can say that they're doing compliant training, but you have the validation that you're being audited, and you have proof that you are doing it, not just you saying it. It's a third party IPAF overseeing it and doing that. So again, it really is the value added to our program and what you should be out there marketing. One other item that's out there, we've introduced at the end of 2022, a new quick Q&A that we want all training centers to be issuing to all of our training centers when you're doing operator training. So we want you to issue it to all of your operator candidates. It's just a simple questionnaire that will provide validation of key performance measures in every training course we deliver. So simply put, we're going to go over there and ask questions like, how many people were in the class? When did you start the class? When did you end the class? So really what we're trying to do is get a very simple questionnaire at the end of every class, so that we have a much more timely identification that someone is overtraining. So if they had 16 people in the class in the morning, and they're trying to train everybody out in that day on 2 products, we know that we have overtraining. If we have somebody who's trying to get the course done in 2 hours, we know that we have undertraining. So it really is a very simple process, and it really is getting that direct contact with the operator trainees so they know about this. So this is something that we have trialed. Diego is putting this out there, and he will make sure that all of the training centers get this link that you can just simply give to them. All they do is click on it on their smart app, and it's just a very quick, I'm going to say 2 or 3 minute Q&A. The next item that's out there is in relationship to instructor renewals. Now, when you complete your instructor training course, it's likely you're not thinking about, how am I going to renew 5 years from now? So it's something that I find that now after 5 years, I get everyone coming, hey, my license is expiring, so what do I need to do? So in that respect, there's a real key to this issue that I think is much more important, and that is, what are the requirements? So what are you doing to support being a renewed instructor from the time you were initially issued your license? Do you participate in IPAF webinars, including this session? This is what we call a semi-structured event, and you get 1 point for it. This event was in person, it was interactive. If we were doing in person, you'd get 1 point per hour. So how many webinars on safety or products or services have you been involved with in the course of the year? And if you're not, you should be planning these things. Do you complete OSHA 10 training? That's 10 points. Do you have work on standard development committees? Do you take fall protection courses? So there's a lot of things that you're likely doing and not even tracking. So really, 5 years comes around sooner than you think if you're not prepared. And we require continuous professional development. And within that, you can go to the manual. It's in the requirements to have annual requirements for development to reinforce your skills. And as I said, most of you are doing it already. So when you're looking at it in the training operations manual in section 2.17, so you'll see, if you went to the training manual, there it is, 2.17, requirements for continuous professional development plan. So it's there in the manual. So when people are asking me about it, one of the things I would say is, if you're a nominated instructor or a lead to this, you really should be looking at this manual over the course of a year, just to make sure that you're familiar with what's in there. As a requirement, you have a minimum of 20 CPD points required over 2 rolling years, which is about 10 points per year. And for every semi-structured event, you get 1 point. So semi-structured event is things like this where you're listening to us. So you're gonna go over there and go to a seminar, webinar, and listen to something. That's an event, 1 point. When you go to a structured event, which is kind of like a training class, you get a point for every hour that's involved with it. So again, I think that there are things that you're already doing. I think you should have a plan for these things so that you're thinking about these, so that when it comes time to you having your renewal, this is really the only tool that you need. You've already went through your training, you're delivering training, and all we want to do is see professional development. And this is kind of a simple tool that we use for you to track that. The other thing that I want to mention is that we have lots of tools that are out there. So I think that's important for you to visit the website. So again, I put a couple of items that are on here, and I'm going to talk about one of these in a little more detail in this afternoon. But we end up having a MUP selection checklist, and you have all the details on how to do that. We end up having all of these Andy Access posters, and we have developed a lot of toolbox talks that are associated with these things. It would be great to go over there and have training centers have some of these posters up around there as reminders to all the people who work for you, who are operators, and put these reminders out, and also to have these tools out there and make them available to the trainees who are going through this course. One of the things that we developed last year, we did seminars on and talked about it, is one of the requirements in the standards, which is developing a safe use program specific to mobile elevated work platforms. We have a guide for that. We've done presentations on it. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in detail, but know that there's a lot of tools that IPAF has been developing, putting time and effort into, that you should be aware of. And if you have questions about, well, I wish we had something like this, if we have it, we'll be provided for you. If we don't have it, we'll discuss it. Maybe it's something that we need to develop in addition to the existing tools that we have. So now I'm gonna get into some course updates, and this is really how I want to frame this for all of our training centers in North America. We basically have been focused exclusively on operator training, and obviously those who need to be instructors to deliver that operator training. So that really is the main focus of the courses that we have here. We also have mass climbing training courses, and that's a little bit more detailed because we end up having what we call operator training for that. That's anyone who gets on that work platform. And then much more detailed is the people who assemble and disassemble those things. So a little bit more detailed. But Paul Rodis, who is again our training manager, and his team have been very busy. We have an unprecedented 6 new or updated training courses this year, which is on average 2 a month, which is phenomenal. These and other IPAF courses have not been reviewed for use in North America, as we haven't had a demand beyond our focus for operator training and our new supervisor course, which we aren't using a lot, and I'll talk about that a little bit, and our suite of mass timing courses. So while these courses are developed and are in use, they are not reviewed and ready for every country, including North America at this point. So it's important to know what IPAF can offer. And if we have training centers who see these courses and say, wow, that's something that I really think we want to bring here, that's something that we need to go through and North Americanize it and make it available to all of our training centers here. So let's go over a couple of those. We have a site assessment for MUP selection course. This is our newest course. And while we already have a MUP for managers course and our MUP supervisors course that contains a lot of the information that's in here that a site person would have, but it doesn't have all the details that you would have in this particular course. It has a lot of additional information that goes beyond what a site assessor would be doing. So this course offers more detailed approach to a rental company employee who would take to provide a thorough process and procedures to complete a site assessment in support of proper MUP selection. So it would go over, this is what I need. If I'm going to go out to the job site, I need to make sure I have a ruler. I need to, here's all the tools I need to be doing these things. It really does have a more significant focus on rental companies going out to try to do selection of MUPs for a customer. So the foundation of the course is such that successful candidates are expected to continue learning and support from their organizations towards competency. So it really is not a, when you get done with it, you're not an operator, you're not a supervisor. It really is a course on a very specific task. So we've created a new animation to give people a feel for the sizes and weights of different machines. We've added a person in the corner to give kind of a visualization of scale. This is playing at about 2 times the regular speed, just to give you an idea of how this animation works. It shows restricted operating envelopes, which is a great discussion point, and the sheer size requires to actually get one of these things set up. Paul Rodis likes this so much that it's intent to actually put this into the operator next version of the operator course. And again, the one thing I point out to you, if you're looking at this, this is an example of, we have this ready, everything here is in metric. So knowing if we put out, 103 meters over here, most people aren't going to see that. So that's an example of the translation that we need to undertake in order to get these things into different countries. The pre-delivery inspection, this is an updated pre-delivery inspection course, and it's targeted at service technicians who service a mobile elevated work platform prior to delivery to a work site. So there's a requirement for what is known as a pre-delivery inspection service. This again has not been translated for use in North America, and unless we have members who ask for this course, it will remain a potential option. So this has been created in a PowerPoint version and uses a slide pack that has been created based on our load and unload course. It is complete and it's being trialed in January of this year. Following the trials, any changes will be made and it will be released for general use. You can see there's clean clarity to the presentation, free theory test, legal requirements, components, functional test. The information is better in this one over our prior version, and the creation of instructor notes for this course that we didn't have before makes it a more effective tool for delivery. So on to something that is really for information for most of you. We have the Mast Climber and Hoist CAP course. So this parallels the MUP Competent Assessed Person. That's what CAP is, Competent Assessed Person course. That also is not used in the North American market. And this is, again, an assessment for those people who are servicing this equipment. But for Mast Climbers, again, we are going to have a Competent Assessed Person course for two courses, Mast Climber and Construction Hoist. They're both in PowerPoint. If you want to know any more about these things, you just have to ask me about them, and we'll look about bringing those in. I'm grouping these together, which is the Operator Renewal and Advanced Operator PAL Plus course. So for a long time, people have been undertaking a full operator course over and over again as the option for MUP operator retraining. And that shouldn't be the only option. Operators that regularly use mobile elevated work platforms should be required to complete the initial operator training course, and they should be renewing their license or upgrading it as needed. Again, this has not been translated for North American use, and dominantly because the new standards needed to be introduced for full MUP operator training. So as that went into effect in 2020, 5 years talking about the renewal of it, really we believe they should have gone through, they have to go through the original course to get all of the new updates in place. But for those looking at it, this is an approach for us to be bringing this technology into place using VR simulators and other options. For those unfamiliar, the PAL Plus course is an advanced operator course that, again, we have not introduced in the North American marketplace, but it's more technical and more robust for more challenging environment uses. So if you are members of training centers decide to consider bringing in the PAL Plus, which is an advanced operator training course, that's something that we could look at as well. Both theory courses are available as e-learning or instructor-led, and the instructor-led takes under 2 hours to complete once you're familiar with it. So it's a shorter version on the renewal. Both courses are focused on common incidents and how to prevent them from happening. And most importantly, they're designed for experienced operators. They build on their existing knowledge and add something new instead of simply telling them the same things over and over again. Essentially, it is directly more useful than our foundation course. So it really does take into account these people being experienced operators. So again, it's a shorter theory course. It's less practice time. The same theory and practical tests are employed. It's more focused on progression than on initial learning, and it requires someone to be experienced in doing this. The challenge that we have over here is, do we know these people? Are we comfortable that they have this? If people are going to be using their logbooks, we have some proof of that. But at this point, when we have someone coming in 5 years later and saying, hey, I want to be retrained, you don't know if they've used it once or never during that period of time, or they're using it every day. So it really is a little bit more challenging here. That's really the question we have for our training centers is, do you think that there's a need for a more concise and robust training course for those people who are deemed to be qualified as existing operators or not? So if we do, we can look at this renewal course and bringing that into this marketplace. On the operator renewal from an IPAF perspective, again, this is looking at the experience register of the logbooks from 1 July of 2022. We need a minimum of 10 entries through 2023, 20 entries, 24, 30 entries. So you see that we're looking for people to have a lot of experience. So the question is whether or not this is going to be something that, based on the criteria that we're putting in place, we think people are going to be documenting it, have that level of experience to really use it as a renewal course. So again, you're looking at, renewal experience checked, as part of that. Here's the details that go with it. So again, this is a program that IPAF is using, where we have IPAF training being a dominant course in the marketplace and people following it to these levels. The answer is this is a great program and a great opportunity. Where we have less compliance with compliant training and we don't know what's going on in the field, I'm questioning, whether or not you as training centers see the need for this. So again, more flexible, more minimal time, more enjoyable for the guys who are there. So I think that there's opportunities for it to move forward. So again, as I'm looking at this, we have the VR simulators for assessments. This is something we spend a lot of time on. So, interestingly enough, a VR simulator is going to be much more attuned to measuring very objectively what an operator is doing. So if you're looking at us as a instructor or trainee observing an operator in the field, and we ask him to elevate, and he is pushing the controller to elevate, and he's looking down, and you're down on the ground trying to look at him. When he has a VR simulator goggle on, it knows the direction that he's looking at, and it's very objective. And so the issue is, it can replicate a lot of things that we're measuring as humans. The real issue is that we have to make sure that it is doing that, because if we go over there and we set the system up so that it's measuring things, it could be failing everybody because we're not measuring it in par with what we believe a human would be doing. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into creating the courses and measurements that the VR simulator system follows in order to do these things effectively. And we believe that we have gotten to the point where when we've paralleled it with a human doing the same evaluation, we think that we're coming up with great results. So we now have VR simulators used for assessment. Instructors must be trained in the simulator manufacturer. The instructor must be present during these things. They can supervise a maximum of 2 during this. So again, we believe that VR simulators are a great tool. We're trying to find ways for us to utilize them in there. If you're looking at some of the pictures over here, when we did the PAL Plus, it took a lot more effort because you had to have 2 machines. You had to set up special setups for doing this. It was much more involved. And doing this through a VR simulator, it really did streamline and make it much more cost effective to be delivering these types of courses as well. So again, I think that this is something that we here in the North American marketplace need to be aware of, that these courses are developed and are potentially available for our use. We just need to realize whether it is something that we want to have used here or not. So existing PAL card holders can comply to the theory courses options. So again, they can use e-learning, they can do remote, or they can do classroom theory training to renew the license, to upgrade it. Plus they need to have an existing PAL card to complete a practical course. And their options are a site physical, MUP, or a VR simulator. So again, now these VR simulators are providing some options that you didn't have before. So the things that we're planning on for the coming year are things that we plan on developing this year. We have a mast climbing work platform and Hoist for managers. So we have a NUPS for managers, a supervisors for managers, and now we're going to parallel that with a mast climber and Hoist for managers course. We're also going to have a harness course reviewed that's specific to use for our equipment. We have a demonstrator course. Again, a course we don't use in North American marketplace. The demonstrator course is a course that is targeted at those people who deliver familiarization. So it really is the demonstrating the product. So it's delivering familiarization. So that course is being reviewed. And again, our operator course is being reviewed once again. And as I mentioned in that new animation of the different configurations of the MUPs, that's an example of enhancements that could go into the courses amongst other items that are out there. And last but not least, before I close out this as the summary for the changes to our program this year and what are out there, I do have a request for an instructor training course. I have one candidate who needs to go through an instructor course. So if any of you out there are looking to add another evaluator or instructor, please contact me as soon as possible. Type it into the chat box and let me know that you have a candidate, or email me because I'm trying to get a course set up relatively soon. So that kind of gives you the completed analysis of the changes that are taking place in our training program, the availability of new courses that are taking place. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Diego quickly to give you a quick presentation from one of our sponsors before Martin takes over. Thank you.
When lives are on the line, when the job needs to be done right the first time, when you no longer want training to cut into your bottom line, there's a MUP VR simulator waiting to assess and remediate your boom and scissor lift operators. As soon as you step into the MUP VR simulator, you're part of a constantly innovating system that provides an accessible training tool that doesn't tie up live equipment or job sites. Our standardized assessments remove subjectivity and produce actionable reports, letting you know when operators are ready for the job. Your MUP VR simulator will take you through industry-based modules where you'll practice operations and solve common field problems.
The MUP simulator in the hands of an industry really shows the workforce that there's something better. If you help a workforce become better operators and reduce the risk on the job site, that's not just a cost savings. That's not just that person going home at the end of the night. That's building credibility.
When you're in the MUP VR simulator, you are put to the test. You will receive scoring that translates behavior into practical terms of risk and value. You'll be measured on efficient, safe, and proficient operation. With a product as powerful and effective in ensuring competency and safety, Sirius Labs offers ongoing support to match. Your Sirius Labs subscription equips you with software updates, new module additions, access to our knowledge base and channel partner portal, as well as hassle-free parts replacement. Our subscription connects you to constant innovation and regularly updated content, reflecting changes and challenges on the job. What you experience here gives you the confidence and competence to be a success out there. Every time you put on your MUP headset and step into the simulator, you are entering a fully immersive world with challenging, high-risk, and contextual environments for every operator on your job site. Our award-winning technology mimics the movements, vibrations, and feeling of being on a boom or scissor lift with incredible accuracy. Through our built-in responsive actuator system, your body will stay centered during the entire MUP experience. You'll finish knowing more and feeling more confident.
Technology is not going to replace a workforce. Embracing technology will enhance it. Sirius Labs builds training products that help a workforce get home safely every day. It's training that matters. It's training that, quite frankly, makes a difference.
Backed by multiple industry awards and a growing number of safer job sites, the MUP VR Simulator by Sirius Labs will help you make sure your workers get home safe every single day when lives are on the line.
Hello, everybody. That was a very interesting little video from Sirius Labs. I don't know whether anybody out there has actually had the opportunity to use the simulator yet, but I was fortunate enough to attend an event where there was one present, and I would strongly recommend having a go if you get the opportunity. My name is Martin Wraith, and first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to Tony for giving me the invitation to come and speak at this event. It's always interesting to listen to how people are doing in other regions around the world. And I just thought for a second I ought to introduce who I am and my background, so you're sort of a little bit more aware of how I come to be able to speak to you in such a capacity. So I started around 35 years ago as a delivery driver, delivering and collecting access equipment. And over a period of time, developed my skills and became an IPAF instructor, and then progressed to being a senior instructor. And more recently, I've been an IPAF auditor, member of the IPAF audit team that Tony was mentioning. Based mainly in the UK, I have done audits in other regions around the world. Sadly, not had the opportunity to come over to your region, but you know, you never know. One day we may get the opportunity. And more recently, from the slide you can see in front of you, you'll realise that I've become the IPAF UK Rental Plus Scheme Manager. Quite a title, and I just thought, since it says the title there, you maybe ought to, or you might wonder what it actually means. Well, in the UK, the rental market has asked for a standard that relates to rental companies. So it's a quality standard mark. It's the powered access industry's guarantee of a quality hire or rental company within the UK, and it's proof that a hire rental company has been independently audited and meets the minimum legal requirements as an absolute minimum. So that's what the IPAF Rental Plus scheme is about. But in all honesty, I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to talk about non-conformities within IPAF documentation. As I said, I was one of the IPAF auditors. I'm still heavily involved with the audit team because the Rental Plus scheme is based on an audit, an annual audit for a rental company. So what I wanted to do for a start was just say, you know, thank you to everybody out there for helping to deliver what I'm sure you would all agree is quality training. Never easy delivering training. Sometimes people just want to actually get the ticket, that's all they're interested in, but obviously we're all passionate as safety professionals about making sure they get the best experience, the best knowledge that they possibly can from the time that they spend with us. But I think, you know, it's always good to sort of congratulate people, and you know, the IPAF scheme is recognized around the world as being one of the best available training schemes if you're involved with operating a MUP. So my presentation, it's not meant in any way, shape or form to actually have a go at anybody or say people aren't doing it right. It's more to do with trying to explain the reasons why we have audits, the reason why we need to monitor and measure. Tony sort of mentioned around audits being a part of the IPAF program and the fact that training centres are due to have an annual audit. And what I'm going to show to you today is taken from those annual audits around the different regions. So why do we have an audit? Well, it's a health check. It's a health check on your business. It's a health check on your procedures, on the scheme as a whole, and it helps us sort of maintain our accreditation to sort of various standards, if you like. So, you know, IPAF, I've got an accreditation with ISO 9001, and we have to maintain that. So we have to be able to demonstrate that we are compliant, because we too have a third-party audit that we have to pass every year. And it's a way for opportunities for improvement to be suggested. So, as I said earlier, if we don't measure something, we don't really know whether it's working right or if it's not working right. And the reason, or one of the reasons why you're seeing so many changes in the course presentations currently, is because IPAF's focus over the recent years has been around the accident statistics coming out of different areas, different regions, different sectors of the industry. And we're actually feeding what we're finding from those reports, when we've identified the cause of these accidents, back into the training program to try and make sure that we can eradicate the issue in the first place, so that we see the accident rates reducing. So continuous improvement. And it identifies where support can be given if errors are occurring. We're all human. At the end of the day, I was an instructor for a good long time, and if you were to go through my paperwork, you would find errors. Now, that sounds strange coming from an auditor, but that's the reality of it. We're all human. So if we don't know we're making a mistake, if someone doesn't point it out to us, how can we improve? And at the end of the day, the last thing we want to do is find out that we've been making errors when we're in a challenging, difficult situation, such as an accident investigation. And obviously, as you're probably aware, IPAF has to maintain compliance with ISO 18878 as well. So there are lots of reasons out there as to why we need to be compliant, and we need to make sure that people delivering the scheme, whether it be training centre or whether it be an individual instructor, are doing their best to be compliant. So, a picture paints 1,000 words. That's something that sort of I've always sort of maintained. Why do we have decals or stickers on machines with pictures rather than lots of words? It's because we can understand what it's telling us regardless of the language that we speak. And I think you would all agree, whilst we do things slightly different in different regions, that picture there paints a picture. What sort of picture does it paint? Well, I'm looking at what looks like a professional instructor is got the correct PPE, is even gone to the lengths of ensuring his chin strap's worn correctly. He's made sure his delegates are kitted out with the correct PPE. He's obviously got them engaged, and it just looks like a quality training session, which is what, you know, most, if not every IPAF training centre sets out to achieve, and certainly every instructor sets out to achieve. The problem with it is that the picture isn't just painted by our actions. Course documentation paints a picture of you as an instructor as well, as I'm sure you would agree. And does this picture on the right hand side, does this remind you of anyone who checks their work and has a keen eye for detail? I think if we look at it, we can see there are big sections of the practical test sheet there that have been omitted or been missed. And we can all understand why. Probably it was a wet day. Probably, you know, it wasn't the best for completing paperwork outside. Maybe we just did the important bits, the faults and the totals at the bottom. And we were going to come back and fill in the gaps. Then we never did. And the problem with it is the focus of the sort of errors, the responsibility with regards to who's responsible for demonstrating compliance is moving, is changing. So a different type of picture is being painted. And does this look like someone who is good at reading and following instructions? Bearing in mind, we as instructors are telling people how to do things in a safe manner day in, day out. It doesn't look great if we can't do that ourselves. And as I'm sure you're all aware, when we look at the guidance at the top of the practical test page, it says that the totals should be entered. If there's a box there, well, then we should be completing it. And remember, the course documentation will be interrogated should the need arise. So it's important that we make sure that we are doing things correctly. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of detail. This slide is just for information. It's not specific to any particular region. It's just an overall idea as to the sorts of issues that we're incurring. And if we look at the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see we're getting more issues with the practical test page being completed incorrectly compared to over on the right-hand side of the screen, where we see things like instructor CPD that Tony's just been mentioning as well. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of them because I'm going to go into a few more in a bit more detail in a minute. But if we just highlight some of the major areas where we're seeing areas where improvement could be made. So the first one, practical test page. Yes, there are so many variables with regards to the practical test page, the type of machine, the category of machine that we're using. I suppose it's understandable that that's an area where errors could occur. Risk assessment. Now, again, risk assessment seems to be an area where people are either slightly confused or misunderstand the requirements around the risk assessment. And what we'll do is we'll go through that in a second just to sort of highlight where people are going wrong. And the course record sheet completed, that's the course overview sheet. I'm going to show you a copy of that and just identify a few areas where people are getting it wrong. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. And you can see, obviously, we're always going to have errors occur, but what we are interested in is seeing the total number of errors on an annual basis reducing, because then that is demonstrating compliance and continuous improvement. Okay, so if we can just start with the practical test page, how often do we see that all candidates incur a 0 faults? So practical tests have been completed, paperwork's been filed, and when we come to look at it, all 4 or 6 or 8 delegates on the course all got 0 points. In other words, they were all perfect operators. Now, bearing in mind that we are training potentially novice delegates with sometimes little or no experience, that is quite difficult to believe. And also, I'm sure you would agree with me that sometimes some of the more experienced people, whilst they think they can operate machines in the way they are intended, they sometimes pick up bad habits. So it's unlikely that you're going to have a group of people who incur absolutely no faults, because remember, this course documentation should reflect reality. Okay, so if there was an accident and an investigation and the authorities got together the candidates that were on the course and they had a chat and found out, well, actually, in reality, this individual who had been involved in an accident really wasn't that good and only just scraped through. If the total faults on the practical test sheet said 0, that's not quite telling the truth, is it? It's not quite showing reality, and that's what we're after. And is it acceptable to leave a section of the form blank? Well, clearly at the top of the page, it tells you exactly how the form should be completed. And again, yes, we all occasionally make a little error, but if we get into bad habits, then those habits tend to sort of become the norm, and then we've got a real issue. So if we've got paperwork that's completed incorrectly, what does that say about you as an instructor? Whether you're an IPAF instructor or some other awarding body, what does it say about you as an instructor if we can't even follow instructions ourselves? And awards incorrectly total could lead to an operator being issued with a PAL card. So a simple error could lead to an operator being given a PAL card incorrectly. So it's always worth checking and double checking before handing in paperwork, before announcing the final result to a delegate. Because remember, what was the candidate's problem has now very firmly become your problem. If it turns out that we've got an operator out there operating equipment who was involved in an accident, who should never have had a PAL card in the first place, that's a difficult conversation to have. Okay, let's look at some of the sort of scenarios we've come across with regards to people completing the practical test page. On the right-hand side there, we can see a large rough terrain vertical or scissor type machine. And one question that a lot of instructors, certainly over here in the UK, struggle with is, would you be correct putting a tick against the box on the practical test sheet that says correct use of harness and lanyard with this machine? Well, my answer to that would be, well, it depends on the circumstances almost, because we do know we have sites over here where people have been, the safety officer is insisting that people wear a harness and a lanyard in such machines. The problem with it is that can be challenging. It can restrict observations when we're lowering or wanting to reverse. So it creates problems in its own right. And is it suitable to drive this machine or operate this machine from the ground, so walking it basically at the side from point A to point B in the practical test? Again, it comes down to the individual machine. If it's a really short lead, shall we say, then maybe it's not safe to do so. If it's a really, really big machine and it's not practical, then again, from a risk assessment point of view, it's maybe not safe to do so. But remember, training should be taking place in a controlled environment. So the need to wear a harness and a lanyard generally would be in exceptional circumstances. So if you had to lean out over the handrails or something like that, then you would expect to have to wear one. As training's been done in a controlled environment, you would expect probably not to see a tick in the box against using a harness and a lanyard. So we need to be obviously wary as to how we complete the paperwork and make sure again that it reflects reality. Let's look at a 1B type machine. So 2 or 3 questions there. Does this machine have mobile controls? Well, the actual category 1B, some will, some won't. What we don't want to get into the habit of is just going through the exercise of a tick box exercise, just putting a tick in the practical form because we think it applies. The answer in the form should relate specifically to the question, to the machine in use on the practical test. And would you be correct putting the tick against slew lock device engaged? Well, a slew lock, I'm sure most of you are aware, will relate to a van mount, a truck mount type machine, and with regards to a machine in the picture there, probably wouldn't apply. But that's not to say that it doesn't in all occasions. So again, it needs to reflect the reality of the machine that's been used on the day. And a PTO, power takeoff, as you will be aware probably, that sort of machine in the picture would not generally have a power takeoff. So we shouldn't be ticking the box to say that it does. Otherwise, again, it's questioning our attention to detail when we're completing the practical test sheet. And if we have to explain around the use of, or whether the box should be ticked around high and low drive elevated speed with a 1B machine, we've definitely got a problem, because clearly a 1B machine cannot be driven when it's elevated. So let's move on to risk assessments. Again, risk assessment, whichever assessment form you use, and IPAF, as I'm sure you're aware, have got a risk assessment form that is freely available. It's not mandatory. You can use your own if you prefer, or a company one if you've got a company one that's applicable. But whichever assessment form you use, it should be used to record the hazards identified on the day. Now, some hazards will always be present. For example, working at height. It is impossible to do a mute course unless delivered in a simulator that doesn't include working at height. And for anybody that hasn't been on a simulator, trust me, it really does feel like you're working at height, even on the simulator. And it should not be used to record fictitious hazards. So the idea of the risk assessment is the fact that we record the identified hazards in the practical area. We should be completing it with the candidates while they're present, because actually that helps to familiarize them with their surroundings before jumping in on the machines and operating them. And remember, it's not just an IPAF requirement. Certainly over here in the UK, the law states that a risk assessment must be suitable and sufficient. It should show certain things. It should show that a proper and adequate check was completed. It should include who might be affected by the actions, and it should detail all the obvious and significant risks, taking into account the number of people who have been involved. And the precautions are reasonable and the remaining risk is low. So we start off with, shall we say, a reasonable high risk area, and with completing the risk assessment, putting in the control measures, we reduce the risk down to an acceptable level. And then we're involving our colleagues, our workers, delegates within that process to make sure that they are familiar and aware of the actual risks identified. And the IPAF form actually includes an area where delegates and the instructor can sign to say that we're all in agreement before we continue. Let's move on now to an IPAF form. So form 223A, which is the theory test evaluation form and course record sheet. Been around for quite a while, not changed a great deal. I'm sure you're mostly familiar with it. And it's amazing how many times we have errors when this has been completed. But just simple things. Is a name required against instructor theory if candidates do e-learning? Well, clearly not. If the candidates of an e-learning, they're not going to complete an e-learning, a theory session with an instructor. So we can easily put not applicable or an e-learning course in there, and then what we're trying to do is tell the story, paint that picture, so it becomes evident that this was an e-learning course. And do all courses start at exactly 8 o'clock? I'm using 8 o'clock as an example. Courses have to be booked on the IPAF system in advance of training taking place. Now, generally, you know, it would be 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever the time may be. But in reality, when the course commences, may not be 8 o'clock. It may be 5 to 8. It may be 8:05. It may be 8:30 if we're waiting for a delegate to turn up. The form should reflect the reality, and the reality is that a course cannot start until all the delegates are there and the instructor has got to the stage where he can start the presentation. So please make sure that the actual start time is entered in that box. And are all courses 7 hours in duration? Well, clearly not. We always say that the 7-hour minimum is not a target, it's a minimum requirement. So generally, you would expect a course to take, you know, as long as it takes. We all have different groups on our courses, some with experience, some without experience, some complete novices. So the completion time would differ. And how long is a course with no finish time? So how can we demonstrate that we've met the minimum criteria if we don't even enter a course completion time in there? So just a reminder again, the 7 hours is a minimum and it's not a target. With regards to the course review, the comments box there, it does say that we require a comment, but really is okay adequate? Does it tell us anything? Has it got any value? The idea of the box is to just sort of give an idea as to any issues or concerns, or just a quick overview of the actual day. It might relate to something that was said by a candidate. It might relate to the fact that some delegates were more experienced than others. It doesn't really matter. It's for you to complete, to help paint that picture, to tell that story, so that then in weeks, months, years to come, should you ever be referenced back to it, you've got a reminder as to what actually happened, and that little comment might spring a memory that brings it all flooding back. So just with regards to names, is a candidate's Christian name alone acceptable? Well, just a little reminder that the course documentation, it's a legal record. It's a record of the delegates coming through the IPAF system. It's filed, and because it's of that sort of nature, we would like to see the full name, so the Christian name and surname of the delegates coming through. And with regards to the machine details, is November 21 acceptable for the annual inspection expiry date? Well, if it's January 21, that may be okay, because clearly we're nowhere near the expiry date. But if it actually was November 21 that the course was taking place, then November 21 wouldn't be acceptable for the annual inspection date, because we need to know the specific date to ensure that the machine is in date on the day that training was delivered. And just a little one, may seem slightly trivial, but there is a requirement to enter the IPAF approved training centre name or number at the bottom right of the screen, or the bottom right of the form. An easy way around this one, in all honesty, if you are a training centre or you work for a training centre on a regular basis, before printing this form off, you could populate it, the details, the name or the number of the training centre in advance, so that you're never going to forget it, because it's always there. So that's just a little hint as to avoid that sort of issue. And just a little reminder, really, in all honesty, I don't know whether anybody out there has been involved in an investigation or that sort of thing, but please rest assured that if ever there's that sort of scenario, then no stone is left unturned, as we say over here. And the investigation would involve looking at any sort of documentation that would prove or disprove what was been claimed by either the injured party or whoever. So if you have a visitor's book at your training centre, it would not look good if the delegate signed out of the training centre before the course completed. What sort of a picture does that paint? Clearly, one is not correct, and both should correspond. Rescue plans. Incomplete or missing rescue plans are becoming a little bit more of an issue, which is slightly concerning. Once again, it's a legal requirement to have a rescue plan when you're working at height, and the IPAF rescue plan is very, very straightforward. Really, you can see an example of the rescue plan section of the form displayed below, and it's just a simple yes or no. So it's not too challenging to put yes or no to each of the questions. And you can see below at the very bottom, it says details of persons completing the risk assessment, because the rescue plan on the IPAF form forms part of the risk assessment and rescue plan. And we get people to sign to say that they agree with it, they're aware of it. And then should anything ever happen, we know that everybody was complicit to it, sort of thing. But what sort of a picture does it paint if we don't have one? So it's important that we actually have a rescue plan. And what I would say on this one is, please think it through. Don't just put a circle around yes for everything if it's not actually true. If we think of a scenario where we've got an 8-meter scissor lift and a 15-meter boom, and then you put yes against other mutes available for basket rescue as a last resort, well, that could prove challenging, couldn't it, if you didn't have any more machines in the yard and it was actually the boom type machine that broke down at 15 meters. So whatever it is you're completing, whether it be a risk assessment or a rescue plan, please think it through and complete it correctly. And not forgetting, where there's a box asking for details, we would expect it to be completed. Tony's already mentioned the vast array of data that's available on the IPAF website. There is a specific toolbox talk that relates to rescue plans, and you don't have to use it on the training course, but actually to have delegates leaving your course with knowledge around how to access that sort of information to take back to the workplace is really, really useful. So if you get the chance, if you can direct them towards the resource, then that'd be brilliant. And as time moves on, I think you'll find that more of this sort of information becomes accessible on the new app that operators have got access to. At the back of every training delegate assessment booklet, there is a training course evaluation, and we're always going to have odd occasions whereby people don't want to complete this. If you've got someone that's failed a course, they may just not want to complete it, and we understand that. We're not saying it's mandatory that everybody should complete it, but you know, if someone did leave the course without completing it, then really we'd expect an instructor just to put a comment as to maybe why. So maybe the delegate declined to complete it due to whatever reason. And then the instructor just sort of making note of that. And at the bottom where it says reviewed by and actioned, it really comes down to personal choice as to whether it's the training centre that would like to complete this, or whether they would ask their instructors to actually complete this. From IPAF's point of view, it's important that someone reviews the content just to sort of make sure that if somebody has put a comment of concern, shall we say, that training centres are aware of it and can action it if action is required. And the other side of this is, if a candidate ticks to say that a part of the course was irrelevant, well, wouldn't you as the instructor want to know which part and why? And also, one of the boxes relates to that some aspects of the course were not covered adequately. Well, again, that's an impact on the quality of your training. So you, again, I would expect, would want to know which section was not covered adequately and for what reason, so that moving forward you could ensure that that wasn't the case. So it's not just a matter of getting delegates to complete these forms, it's making sure that you quickly review them and understand what the delegates are feeding back, so that should there be a need, we actually action it. Let's have a little look at the theory test page. So again, this is another area where quite a few issues can arise. And you know, sometimes it can be challenging, sometimes it can be down to the delegates and the way that they've completed it. But we as instructors have to make sure that we're satisfied that the delegates have met the criteria to progress from the theory to the practical. So let's run the scenario. The candidate has handed in their post-theory test paperwork. So this is an instructor-led course. After you've ensured that they've checked it. So you've asked them, are you sure that you've checked everything? Yes, they've handed it in. Okay. You mark it, you score it. And the delegate has initialed an amended answer as required. So we can see there circled, the candidate has actually amended an answer as per the guidance at the top of the page. You enter the total number of correct answers as required. We can see it circled there at the bottom, 24. So this is a pass mark. And next you hand the answer sheet back to the candidate and review the incorrect answers. So we go through the areas, you can see the answers with the red triangles. We go through the areas where the delegate has not quite made the correct selection to the multiple choice questions. And we ensure that they're fully aware where they went wrong before we proceed to the practical. Nothing wrong with that. But what about question number 29? On this occasion, we can see that that delegate has not followed the guidance at the top of the practical test page. And is that an A? Is it a D? Could it have been a C? I don't really know. So really, what has happened here is that the instructor has passed a delegate to progress to the practical and potentially award them a PAL card when they should never have actually passed the theory. And again, what was the delegate's problem has very, very firmly now become your problem. And if at an audit this is picked up, there are various ways that it can be dealt with. Certainly it's going to be the instructor's problem. Certainly the instructor is going to be asked for an explanation, and potentially it may well be that a delegate is asked to sort of return the card and that sort of thing. So it's an area where, you know, we don't want people to have to go. So please just double check and make sure before handing paperwork back to delegates. Admin pages, missing candidate signatures. Clearly the new paperwork has been slightly amended, and it says there, by signing below, I confirm, understand and agree to the information declared to in this form. Various things are listed there. I'm not going to read them through. I'm sure you've all read them. But if we haven't got a signature there, again, how can we confirm anything? We need a signature and we need it dated. Remember, this is a legal document. And if the employer details have been left blank, is that acceptable? Maybe the person is out of work. Maybe the person is self-employed. Well, it doesn't take too much just to put a little entry there to explain the reason. So the details are blank, self-employed or unemployed, and then we fully understand and the picture has been painted. And how would you manage the documentation when a delegate fails the practical element and returns at a later date to retake the practical test? Again, it's about how we paint the picture, how we communicate from one set of paperwork to another set of paperwork, when what was completed and that sort of thing. So a little note in the file to say that this delegate is only doing practical because he completed the theory a week last Tuesday or whatever, from an audit perspective makes an audit trail so much easier to follow. And adhering to the matrix. I know, around the world, the matrix can vary slightly from region to region. And I know sort of with regards to COVID, things have changed, and with reintroduction of VR, again, there are more changes. But potentially it's one of the most serious errors that an instructor or a centre can occur. Or we don't want to see it where people are overtraining, because then the whole quality of the training is called into question. And some see the matrix as more challenging due to the introduction of e-learning and VR and such like. All I would say is don't get caught out. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please ask. I know Tony would agree with me wholeheartedly that we would much rather someone ask a question in advance of training rather than try and unravel an issue when it's identified as a problem during an audit. And I'm a big believer there is not such a thing as a silly, difficult or stupid question. If you're wondering what the answer to the question is, there's a very good chance that others are too. And we would like to know as IPAF if you've got questions, because it may well be that it's the way the information is put across. So again, from a continuous improvement point of view, it's all about learning together. And please make sure that, Tony's just introduced lots and lots of different sort of courses that have been talked about and presented and are made available in certain regions. Whatever course it is you're delivering, just make sure that you're delivering the latest version. I know that some of the courses are available on the LMS, so that you gain access to them online. Tony's mentioned a couple that are still in PowerPoint format. All I would suggest is just once in a while, double check and make sure that you're actually delivering the latest version of the course. If it's a course like the operator training that comes from the LMS, please remember to synchronize, because that's valuable data that actually is fed from your computer back to the system with regards to sort of emptying your computer's memory to make things run smoothly. So there are lots and lots of good reasons for synchronizing data. And like I say, least but by far no means least, is to make sure that you're actually delivering the latest version of the course. And sometimes updates are done in the background, and it may well just be to do with an operational thing within the system rather than a change to the presentation. So you might find if you do an update that nothing seems to have changed, but in reality things are working more smoothly. So just remember, please, that non-conformities within documentation, the book has to stop somewhere, basically. If we were to have an accident, if we were to have an investigation, if we interrogated the course paperwork, it's all painting a picture, and somewhere the book has to stop. What we would like to think as instructors, as training centres, as training centre managers, as IPAF as a whole, we would like to think that the book would stop with the delegate, the contractor, a fault with the machine or something like that. Clearly we don't want any sort of incidents. That's what we're all aiming for. That's why we're all doing this. That's why we're all passionate about. But the book has to stop somewhere. And what we don't want is the book stopping with us. So I'm going to ask the same question again. I asked it first off. Why do we conduct audits? We ensure that in the worst case scenario, so if we use an accident investigation as that example, we can demonstrate that training is delivered to a recognized international standard. It's to ensure that we can all stand firm and say that we did our bit, we did our best. And it's to ensure that the ability of the instructor and the quality of the training delivered is not brought into question. And I don't know whether anybody's worked it out yet, but this is for a minimum of 1,825 days from the moment you put your signature on that course paperwork, because 1,825 days is 5 years. That's the duration of a license. That is the period of time that the paperwork could be potentially investigated or interrogated, as a minimum, I hasten to add. So we need to make sure that we complete it correctly, so that we don't get to the stage where we have a problem and the quality of the training is brought into question, rather than, like I say, the machine or the contractors and the conditions they're allowing people to work in. So I like to think of an audit more like an annual inspection. We call them thorough examinations over here, but you've got annual inspections. And if you think about it, a manufacturer sends out a manual that includes the service requirements. A rental company, when they take possession of the machine, conducts pre-delivery inspections prior to hires. They will conduct services and conduct preventative maintenance. Operators will do daily checks, but annual inspections are conducted by an independent party to ensure that the system works and the machine is in good working order. And if serious issues are not identified, the inspector is duty bound to notify the authorities. Sorry, if serious issues are identified. And the idea of that inspection is to make sure that under normal circumstances, the machine is safe to use moving forwards. And that's what an audit's about, really. It's all about making sure that we're doing the best we can. It's not about pointing the finger at anybody. But what we don't want is course documentation like this, and this is an actual example of a completed course paperwork. We don't want that sort of thing leading to this. So we've said that course documentation will be interrogated. I started by saying a picture paints 1,000 words. It does paint 1,000 words, but it just doesn't relate to the practical and how it looks. It's all to do with the course presentation. It's all to do with the course documentation. It's the complete package. And that's what we control and monitor with the auditing. And hopefully you will agree that it's a good, valuable sort of side of what we do, as Tony says, to put us over and above certain other providers that maybe claim to operate quality or deliver quality training, but maybe aren't able to demonstrate that that is actually the case through a third-party audit. And on that note, I would like to say thank you very much for listening. I would also like to say once again to Tony, thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this. And that, again, it would be nice on one occasion to be able to actually meet and see everybody in reality rather than over a computer screen, which I'm sure we're all very used to now, but it doesn't mean to say that we don't like meeting up and catching up. So I'll hand back on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you greatly, Martin. Thank you. So Martin, again, I greatly appreciate you spending the time with us today and sharing your experience and thoughts on that topic, which I think is very valuable. It really does, in my opinion, hammer one of the significant differentiators in our program is the fact that what we do isn't just what we say we do, it's we're audited to ensure that we're doing those things. And I think you gave a very thorough review of some of the things that we experienced through our audits, that are items that all of our training centers should be aware of and concentrating on to make sure that we can minimize any faults that take place in our operations. So thanks for your time. All right, I'm now going to talk a little bit about accident reporting and data. So IPAF has been tracking powered access accidents since 2012. And I'm aware of the fact that most people are not using the system to report incidents. So the issue is, how many of you have heard or read about a powered accident in the news? Or how many of you have seen or heard about a MUP accident or seen a near miss? How many of you have been involved in a near miss? And how many of you have reported it on our portal? So, so I'm going to start with the primary question is, and this is a picture of the portal and how easy it would be to report it. One, it can be anonymous. You can track your company results if you run a register. So you can look at what's going on in my company and understand those items. The reporting is generally vague. No name. We're not looking for names. We're not looking for suggested root causes. We're just reporting what happened. It's not an accident investigation. And the report enables IPAF to improve the content of our training programs, develop technical guidance, target specific high-risk professional activities, and provides research findings to bodies developing and drafting new industry standards. So I'll tell you what would happen the other day. I've been working on an issue for rough terrain forklifts, and we, as you hopefully all know, our latest standard required the adoption of platform load sensing on all mobile elevated work platforms manufactured after June of 2020. And I was talking to an individual, and we were discussing that option being applied to rough terrain fork trucks. Wow, we have all these loadeds going out. What if we put platform load sensing on that? And would that eliminate tip overs and overloading? And I was talking to one person, and he said, "Well, yeah, it seems like there's a tremendous amount of accidents involved with rough terrain fork trucks, and if we put this load sensing on that, that would have much more impact than it would ever have on mobile elevated work platforms." So it got me all hyped up, and to run to the end of this process, when I went out and tried to look for statistical data that showed that there was a need, that overloading of platforms could remedy a problem, I couldn't find any. And I went to some people in Europe, because in Europe the standards actually require a form of load sensing on RT fork trucks. And I said, "Well, why did you put that on?" I said, what data do you have? And they said, "Well, it's really hard to get data, and there's not much that's there that we could rest our heads upon." So and as I went through this whole process, I ended up saying, there's nothing out there that really dictates that adding this added cost and maintenance expense to that product would be something that I could go to a standard body and make this recommendation without any detail. So it's something that I think is very critical, and I think that it really offers us some idea of the value of doing this reporting. And as you see on this sheet to the right of it, that's kind of a sample of what the reporting form is. What is the date of it? Who was involved with it? What was the outcome of it? And what was the machine? And and the like. So it's a very simple form. And as I said, the more data that we have, I think the more value we can add to our activities, because I would rather do things based on actual facts than perceived notions of this is a big problem. How do you know it's a problem? So this is just a simple request for your assistance to improve the accident reporting data in our market. If you don't want to report into the system, simply just send me an email with a link to a news report or a summary of an incident or something else, and I'll enter the data in. But really, I'm imploring you to add your eyes and ears so that we can improve upon the data that we have and add more data into the reports. So here is actually information that you see from our report. So again, we've been reporting from 2012 through 2021. And here, the 2021 data has yet to be confirmed by our International Safety Committee. So just know that we're dealing with the raw data at this moment. So a couple of main points are that there's a 23% increase in reports in 2021. So the message is growing to have people get more involved with reporting. 28 countries have entered incidents in 2021 that reported 97 fatalities, which is currently a reduction of 131 from the prior year. But as I said, we're still adding data. I will tell you that I generally look at all of the OSHA FATCAT report, which is fatal and catastrophic incident reporting. It's a requirement in North America. That data is anywhere from 6 to 9 months behind schedule. So when I look at the reporting on the OSHA FATCAT report for 2021, it sometime is going to be in August before all of the reports are processed and put onto their database for us to have that information. So you can see that, you know, while we say 2021 is done, there's still some reporting that can come out. So all incident data and lost time incidents trends you can see on the bottom. So it gives us a lot of information to deal with. So here's global accident stats for all types of incidents. So you can see reports by country and reports by machine. And we end up having these reports that you know, go into a published report that IPAF issues that's available to all of our members on an annual basis. And they're filtered by major and fatal only in this one. So here you can see it's sliced out, and we have reports again by country, by industry sector, and by machine categories. And we can take that information and all lost time incidents reported into the portal provide this data, which you can then see characterized by what's the leading injuries. So when it comes to doing your risk assessments, what are the things that we need to be looking at? What are the known potential hazards? Falls or platform. Anytime that you're elevating someone off the ground, you have a potential for a fall. So, and the data here explicitly shows you that the leading cause of fatal lost time accidents is falls from platforms. The next one we have is electrocutions. Then we have stability overturns. We have entrapments. So when you're looking at these would give you some of the conceptual ideas when you're thinking about doing risk assessments, or what are some of the things that I need to be looking at. And so these are known incidents. So here are some of the information in relationship to industries and location. So if you're looking at lost time by industries, you can see construction industry and agriculture, arborist, tree care are leading. Next is rental activity. So and you go down this line now. Interestingly enough, and if I go back to one of the previous slides, you'll see that the reporting is coming from the rental industry. And in the UK, every member is required to do accident reporting. And that's an internal item. So when a rental company is going over there, they're now looking at the details of incidents with their drivers, incidents with their mechanics, incidents on job sites. So it's the things that they're doing themselves. And by doing that, we're getting much more data about rental activity, potential hazards, such as loading and unloading being a real critical issue for rental companies that you wouldn't see if you're looking at just construction job sites. So the fact that we end up having this more detailed reporting, we elected not to require it of members in the North American marketplace, but it kind of gives you a perspective of, as you start gathering data, you can see things differently. So here we're going into the US data. So here we end up having fatal and major incidents, again, all by the US marketplace and by industry sector. So here you have the ability to then compare what are we doing in the US and what is that compared to globally. So you have some data that allows us to go out there and look at things a little bit differently and compare ourselves to that. And as I said, there are companies who report their data as a registered name. So they can go in there and look at what their company's doing compared to everybody else as well. So fatal categories, the major and minors indicate that other people were injured at the time but survived. So when you're looking at all of this, we had 102 electrocutions. So in the US market, electrocutions were the #1 incident, followed by falls from the platform, stability overturns, and entrapment. So again, looking at this thing by country can give you a different perspective than looking at it globally, and identify things that are much more at risk in your marketplace. So what are those hazards in those particular places? Again, we go in here, the US data, construction, agriculture, those are pretty much the same areas. So when we identify where these incidents are coming from, we can tear down and identify where that information and industries are having these incidents. So again, you can see that the more incidents and data that we have, the more ways that we can slice this information and identify areas of concern, areas that we should be concentrating our activities upon in order to improve in these particular areas. So I'm not going to go over these in detail, but again, what does this mean to me? Well, the data, as I said, can be sorted by all levels as we collect it. Below is an example of information that we contain for work on roads, highways, and public areas. So when we break that area down, you see electrocutions are the #1 area of hazards for people who are working in those areas, followed by hit by vehicles or machines. I mean, there's probably, it's obvious that if you're out on roads, the risk of that occurring is greater. But as I said, if you're not focusing on that for your market area, for where you're working on this, you can see how the data can be sorted to give you a more finite approach and focus on how is it impacting me. And as I said, if you register and do all reporting of all incidents in your company, you will be able to contact and have all of that data and follow that in trends within your own company. So again, it's something that we encourage everyone to consider and look at. The International Safety Committee is currently ratifying the 2021 accidents. The work is commencing on a new portal. You can see here's all of the types of information that we can see on our portal. The global TSC will be reducing falls. Slides show fatal falls from heights global and types of equipment being involved globally. So again, the ability to have good data allows us to take appropriate actions. So rather than it being what we have a gut feel on that may or may not be correct, here is strong, concrete data for us to take action upon. So one thing I'm going to just kind of close my morning presentation out is just this one last item, which is safety, leadership, and professional development. So while all IPAF training centers are members, most employee members do not directly communicate with IPAF or IPAF to the employees. IPAF has created a new member category named safety professionals. And as an employee of an IPAF member, you can join it at 50% discount. So it's $49 a year, and you can join as a safety professional individual member by your name. Our goal is to offer specific tools and forums for new member groups and attract new members from contractors and industry who use MUPs and can add value with the powered access focus. So again, this is all we do, is powered access. We currently have 36 members and have started unique LinkedIn work groups, and we'll be issuing a free link to the MUPs for Managers course. So anyone who becomes a safety professional members, we will send out a link to take our MUPs for Managers course, which is a $99 cost. And again, so you get to take that for free, and you get a certificate of completion with that. The real value of this is we want to create a much more, I'm going to say, open discussion with webinars for these work groups to really talk about those items and give a little bit more detail. So again, it's just another opportunity if you want to look at that as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diego.
Thank you, Tony. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Great. So, well, before we go to lunch to break, just a quick, save the date notice to all to attend Innovate 2022 on September 28th. This is really a unique event where every attendee has a voice, ability to hear others, create solutions that can benefit our industry. Again, it's a great opportunity to collaborate, network pretty much with all the industry stakeholders, manufacturers, rental companies, contractors, service companies, and it's really for everyone. You get to sit with managers, supervisors, salesperson, drivers, mechanics, operators, and they get together in problem-solving workshop that will serve as an incubator for solutions to improve our industry. So mark it on your calendars to be with us there in September 28th. These links with the ALH conference in Chicago as well, which is they have a networking event in the 28th and in the 29th, so you can take down two birds with one stone if you come with us to the event. So mark it on your calendars, everybody. Be on time for session 2. So we're gonna go for a break right now, 1 hour break. So we'll reconvene in the same with the same link, with the same everything. We're gonna keep the session open anyways. So we reconvene at 1 p.m. Eastern time and at noon Central time for closing the session with everything about the EPAL, all the changes of the system administration. So super important, a bit more technical, that's who I am, the technical guy. So that will be super important on your day-to-day training in this. Okay, so see you in 1 hour.
I just close with, again, thank you to our sponsors, Sirius Labs and Skyjack for making this possible. I appreciate everyone's time. There were a couple of questions. This is not a certified programs, so we don't have CEU credits that go to safety professional accreditations. This is a program that does count towards continuous professional development, which again is a requirement for those who are instructors for our training program for the renewals. So this does count as a CPU credit for our program. And again, thank you for all for your attention. Hopefully we've addressed all the questions that came up. Those we didn't, we will get back to you on, and we will see you in 1 hour. Thank you all.
We'll respond all the questions that are in the chat and in the Q&A in the next session. So see you in an hour. Why, hello everybody. Welcome back to session number 2. Luckily, you have a nice lunch, a nice break, and we can carry on with the meet and greet of these PDS. Tony, are you with me?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, great. Perfect. So, first of all, let's go back and thanks our sponsors, Skyjack and Sirius Labs, for sponsoring these PDS. We could not done it without him. This and many events who are made up by sponsors. Thank you very much. So I'm talking about the benefits of EPAL and digital licensing for training center, especially the EPAL. I'm Diego Bustamante. Most of you know me because I talk to you on a regular basis. And what I'm going to show you now, it's not only explain what's the EPAL and what you should be on the lookout, but what's going to change for you as a training administrator as well. And I'm going to do a quick live demo of these new changes as well. Tony talked a little bit about the EPAL, so I'm just going to talk in detail about what it means and what it represents. And that's pretty much the big thing of this year. It's going to be the EPAL and how it's going to affect your day-to-day training. Okay, so EPAL is an application to allow users to have their licenses in their phones. That's as basic and as I can put it. So it enables the power access industry, the power access users, to record and show and share their IPAF qualifications and operating experience. They can also get safety information, the best practice advance, all in one single mobile environment. What does the EPAL application provide? Best practices to the operators. So for the first time, IPAF can communicate directly to the operators with safety updates and best practice advice. We can save time for the training center, which translates in less administration and handling of PAL cards for IPAF training centers and, of course, your customers. Savings in distribution of the training center. Reducing the manufacture and distribution of physical assets, including PAL cards and certificates and printing, the OSGs, the safety guides, logbooks. The reduction benefits not only to the environment, but also save time and money for training centers. And the operators won't forget their phones. So we will have this. And of course, if they don't have a phone, they can still use a physical card. So let's quickly take a look at the old process, which is what we were used to last year, which is this big process that I'm showing right now. Basically, you do the training. I don't know if you can see my pointer there, but basically you took the training. Then after the training, you submit the application in the TCAS. We process the request. It usually takes 1 day. We print the card. And we send the card out via FedEx or whatever to the training centers. Then you receive the cards 2 weeks later, and you organize certificates, and then you need to send those cards to the customer, and then they will receive the license, and they need to deliver it to the operator. Then they receive the PAL card. They use the card. 5 years later, they need to renew the card. So this is the old process. So it has a lot of many non-value added steps. Really, it's mostly logistics and processing. The PAL cards changes hands too many times, which can lead to lost licenses in the mail, problems with typos, problems with other stuff, and the main reason. Knowing what the industry wants is, of course, it's a long wait for the operator to get the card in their hands to go to work. What we sometimes suggest to the training centers is you can provide some sort of a receipt of completion of the training. In the meantime, they can review it on the website. They can, because usually we can have in the TCAS, you can have the the operator number 1 day after the training took place. So you can share that with the customer, and they can have the license number. You can check it online. So there is some ways around not having the card right away, but that's over with the EPAL, because we can have it the next day. And this is the new EPAL process. It's a more simple process, which begins here taking the training. You process the license, and we process the license, and then the distribution part, it's pretty much the end of the process, because it all happens digitally. They get the card in their phones, or they get the request to download the app and get the card. So it's a way simpler process. We're giving you back, not giving you back, giving you more control of what you can do with the actual certificates of the candidates. We're giving you more control, and it's going to be a fast deliver to the operator. They will get it right away. So what does a candidate get? So this is for the operator course. Right now they get the PAL card, the plastic card, and the paper certificate, signed certificate. They get the logbook as well, where they can register the log, what they work, and they get the OSG, the operator safety guide. With the EPAL, they will get the digital PAL card and certificate as well. They will get in the same app the digital logbook, where they can register the work they do on the machines, and this is going to be per machine. They get the OSG digitally as well, so they can review at any point. They get updates on safety bulletins whenever IPAF gets out with a new maybe safety campaign or some safety advice. They will get that information on the EPAL. So the EPAL, it's much more than just having, let's say, if I just send you the card like in a PDF, right? It's much more than that, because that way we get all those features. And as it says there, we are working on way more features for the instructors as well, that you can do so much more stuff with the EPAL. Right now we are having everything like to the operators, and then we will carry on and add features at your request as well. If you think there's something that's a good idea, or that you would like to have this feature on the app or anything, just send an email to Tony or myself, and we're gonna make sure we can discuss it on the next update meeting, because this is for you and your operators, and this is gonna be and all of this, it's gonna be for the same price for you as well. So starting with the EPAL, the actual application on the phones, there's 3 main sections. Well, before I say that, it's available on iOS and Android, so which covers 99.99999% of the devices out there. So there's 3 main sections on the app, which is the actual logbook, which is the experience, where, as you can see on the screenshot, they are doing the actual log of the work they do on per machine. So for example, it says an assessor, IPAF static, IPAF boom. They can actually put the names of the machines. Most of the people doing maintenance on companies, they usually have their own machine. Or if they're hiring for someone, they usually ask for the same machine. I want that same machine, so you can have hours of on that same machine registered on the logbook. In that same tab on the app, you can have the safety guide as well. So the OSG is going to be there at the top. It's a safety guide. You click on that, and you will have the OSG that you know and love right at your fingertips. If you have not done it already and you have your PAL card near you, just grab your phone, search for EPAL on the App Store, and download it right away, so you can have that in hand. You can use it. You get to get familiar with the app as well. You also have the training tab, which is the main tab where you can find your certificates, your qualifications, the licenses. If you maybe have more than one license, it's going to show up here as well, so you will have that as well. And you got safety, so best practice and safety advice for users of power access equipment. Going back to the first to the main tab, which is training. This, as I said, can host multiple licenses. So if you have maybe training for 3A, 3B, and then later you did 1A, 1B, it's gonna appear here as well. You can see on the screenshot that it says here 3A and 3B, which are the categories of this license. You can see where you took the training. So the training provider details are here with a little map with a phone and email, so they can have a quick contact with you if they require to renew, if they're required to add more training to their training qualifications. I mean, it's and the PAL card, the actual the plastic, well, not the plastic, the actual digital version of the plastic can be viewed easily and shared here. There's a share icon there that you can just share and send to iMessage, WhatsApp, email, whatever. There are existing EPALs, so everybody that has an actual physical card right now, automatically it's now on the EPAL system. So all the PAL holders can benefit from downloading the app and adding this information and get their stuff in the app right away. So the actual application can scan the NFC on the back of the card. You can just grab your phone and it's gonna appear there. Scan your card. You just stick your card in the back of the phone, and it's gonna validate and check and add the license to the application. Reminder that you need to create an account to use the EPAL, because this is an account that's for you, the instructors, for every operator, because it's a personal certification application. It's not linked to the training center, it's not linked to IPAF, it's not linked to, it's for you, your personal use. So you will need to create an account, and that's gonna give you the Ipaf ID, which I'm gonna talk later on. The experience tab, the experience section, it's of course a replacement of the paper logbook that saw many trash cans in his day. Right after the training, they just didn't bother to fill it in, and they just toss it in the bin. So for the first time, we're gonna release, in this first release of the PAL card, it's gonna be manual entries, but we're gonna upgrade that to be more automatic entries. They can add pictures and everything. So we are continuously improving on this one. It's gonna be grouped by machine and shows the total operating hours, time, and it's gonna be broken down, as I said, by machine. This will be the most frequent section that people are going to be using on a day-to-day basis, because most of the time they know they have the cards and everything, so they can use this more often. And the Ipaf Id Profile, which is what I was talking about. I get ahead of myself sometimes. I get confused. Sorry about that. So it's your account. It's a single account. So the Ipaf Id Profile, it's a whole new thing. It's a brand new thing, and training centers play a crucial role in onboarding the users. So all the students are going to go through your training centers doing the training. You need to add 2 minutes, 5 minutes to let them know that they need to create this. If they don't do it, that's okay. But that's going to make more work for you when you're adding the application. And I'm not saying more work as you do right now, because it's pretty much the same work that you do right now. But it's going to, if they do it, it's going to be way quicker for you to process applications. So it's a single account created through the EPAL app before, during, and after the training. And the link, the actual EPAL, so the EPAL, it's going to be linked to this Ipaf ID. So the benefits of having an account before and during the training, it's gonna help you process the cards. Process the applications more easily. And this is because the system now that I'm gonna show you in the live demo, it's gonna auto-populate the information in the forms with the information that the candidates are putting in the app. So it's going to speed up the data entry that you usually do when you grab the assessment booklet and you're reading through that information, and you see that, oh, Diego has horrible handwriting and I can't even read the email or their phones or everything. So that's going to go away, because that's going to help you fill in the applications. if they have the IPAF ID before you process the applications, once you do process the applications, the license will be automatically linked to that account. So they won't have to go through the process of creating an IPAF ID when they're at home or 2 weeks later after the training. And because that's going to represent them calling you or calling us saying, hey, I have a problem. How do I create my account? What do I put here? It's going to be more complicated. So strongly advise that you do this during the training. Before you go to practicals or at the beginning of the class or at the end of the class, you need to do this as well. So we also, aside from the app, the actual EPAL on their phones, we have some changes to the training center management systems, or as we are trying to push for you to understand that it's called TCAS. So most of you know this as remote user access because that was the title of the page. I mean, I sometimes call it the IPAF system, but we also have the LMS. So the LMS is everybody knows what's the LMS. So we call them the LMS or the Bolt system back in when it was, I'm digressing. So changes in the TCAS. So EPAL is, as I said, it's only one element that's going to change. And there is a lot of work behind the scenes to bring this EPAL new system and process. So maintaining support to what we already have, the process that you already know, which is the TCAS, booking the applications, and processing everything. We are updating the application forms, and I'm going to show you today all the changes, which is not a lot, but it's something that you need to keep in mind as well. We have updated processes as well. You will find the distribution portal, which is a completely new page that now you're going to be familiar with, which you're going to love because you're going to have way more information in there about the students. You're going to have an easier way to filter out. The current process, as you know it, is you go to view applications, and you will still be able to go there and view applications and view the actual numbers. But going to the distribution portal is going to be more easier for you to check. You have nicer filters that you can filter people out and get lists and export those lists. So it's something you've been requested for a while now, and now we're going to have it here with the distribution portal that's going to serve as a gate for you to manage and release the licenses to the actual operator. So this is the bridge where you have the big red button to send those licenses to the clients, and this is gonna be can be automated if you don't want to bother in just you can actually do a manual thing and an automatic thing as well. More technical stuff, we updated the API to connect to the EPAL, which it's gonna allow us to use the data of the I hope that I don't confuse you. Certainly I can see Tony's face. So we use this API technology to link the IPAF ID to the TCAS so we can automate what you do on the system. So this is gonna help you out, doing a more quick process when you're uploading the applications. I'm sure you're gonna love this, and I'm sure you're gonna run into trouble as well. So that's what I'm here for. This is going to the actual portal, and maybe this, as it is this picture, it's maybe not gonna make sense, but it will make sense when I do the live demonstration. But this is mainly the changes when submitting applications. So the booking of applications is gonna stay the same. Okay, so when you book application, that's not gonna change. It's gonna be the same process in the same portal. When uploading the applications, that's going to be where you're going to see new things popping up, new information here. As you can see here, this big yellow thing is going to be there now. And what this big yellow square means is it says there, you will need 2 of this information in this box to auto-populate the fields to save you time. So one thing that's mandatory, it's gonna be the date of birth. So you only gonna need the email, the mobile phone, or the IPAF ID. to auto-populate the system. So when you're uploading the applications, if you got the IPAF ID from the students in the class, this is going to be way faster process because you're just going to type in the numbers, put in the date of birth, and you don't see it here, but there's a big thing here saying check. You will see it on the live version, and you can check, and it's going to grab all that information there. So that's going to help you out. And the other thing that you'll see here, if you can see my cursor, it's all the applications by default are going to be EPAL. All by default are EPAL. You need to actively check this box to get a physical printed copy. So if you do not check this, you will not get a physical PAL and certificate on your mail. It's only going to be digital. So make sure you take conscious of what you do. As I said to all of you when we do personal one-on-one training, the first thing you do is find a course. If you don't find a course, you're gonna be stuck. So you find a course, and then the second most important thing it's gonna be to check and get click on this if you want a physical copy of the application. That you still are gonna have the EPAL. So if you check this box, you will be able. Your client's still gonna receive the EPAL on their phones, but the plastic thing is gonna arrive 2 weeks later. So it's a nice thing that you will still have both things if you want a physical copy. Okay, and going to the distribution portal, which is also this screenshot that we have here, it's designed to give you more control. You're gonna have manual or auto release of the licenses, and this is your choice. You will receive emails from this from the portal now saying, hey, you have I don't know 5 licenses to be released from this batch, and it's gonna keep you posted so you don't miss this. You can do bulk actions as well to release multiple licenses. If you have a big group, you can do this as a bulk. You have, as I said, better searching options on approved licenses. The filter, it's great. You can select users on search criteria that are new and individually create emails within the system so you can send to the customers, hey, your license is ready, and you can send that out. Okay, and you will be you're gonna have something that IPAF has never done before, which is giving you two things. So the first one is giving you an actual dashboard, which is going to show you your training numbers. So you will see how many trainings have you done in a given time. Right now, you need to have maybe a manual control. Most of you have an Excel sheet where you have trainings done in a given month, and you can keep track of those. You have everything. But here you will have a dashboard when you can see your progress, how many trainings you've done, pending to distribute, notifications. You're going to have everything here on the dashboard. And the other thing, which is major thing, is you're going to get the certificate, the actual certificate on a PDF where you can send to the customer. Or better yet, some customers, because we know them, still want some physical stuff. They are not comfortable paying for air, you know. I mean, we know it's not air, but it's not tangible. You cannot feel it. So this is gonna give you the tools for you to download these PDF certificates and print them out in some nice, thick and beautiful paper, and give that to the customer. So if you choose to do the EPAL, you can still manage to provide that certificate so that they can hang up on their offices and everything, because let's face it, they love to have that on their offices, certificates and stuff. So you will still be able to do that as well without relying on IPAF to send you this piece of paper that you can just print out yourselves. So 2 major things that you're gonna have, and I'm gonna show you right now a live demonstration of this, which, Tony, can you see it? Good. So before logging in, I'm logged in right now. I don't want to log out because it's going to take some time. So this is what you are familiar of seeing in the TCAS right now when you log in. You will see all this information, book a course, and then applications, course list, the applications, all the documents you need, the manuals, the forms, everything's here. We have this new distribution portal. This is the thing that you're gonna see that's new in this first page as well. From the things that are new on this first page, we have the user guide, which is a brand new user guide, which is going to show you everything that you need to know to use the system. So everything that I'm going to show you right now, it's in detailed in that user guide. So please download that, print it, have it in hand. And if you miss something, you know, you can call me anytime, anywhere, same as Tony. But if you can just read that first, it might save us 10, 20 minutes. So you'll have that guide as well. So as I said before, booking a course is gonna stay the same. So that process is gonna be exactly the same. And I'm gonna go to other applications where the change that I show you, it's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna click on add an application. And of course you need to upload a photo. So as you can see, it's updated, but you know, not really, because it looks like the same system, but the insights, the API, it's different. It's all new. So we in this process of upgrading everything, we're gonna change it bit by bit. So we of course don't overwhelm you with something completely new. So I'm gonna upload a photo here. Hopefully it's not gonna take forever. So there you go. Let's grab the money shot. Crop it, confirm. And then we have an application, which is a process you are familiar with. It's gonna take us to the form. And this is where you will see the actual change that I was showing you before. So right now we have this box. So the first thing I would do is click and find a course. For the purposes of this live demonstration, I won't do it because this is a dummy account, so we don't have it. So you can see here, request a physical copy. It's gonna be here for you to click and select if you don't want it. You also, I mean, we have USA and Canada for English, and for Quebec, we have French Canadian as well. So you will select this in what you need for this. And this is the yellow box I was telling you about. So of course, you're gonna have to put the date of birth here, putting my own. I'm not gonna appear there as well. You can see how young am I. And then you're gonna click the IPAF ID. The IPAF ID is a number that's like a credit card number. It's gonna be, I think, 16 digits. And you can type this, and once you do, you click on check. And it's once it's gonna find the account, it's gonna auto-populate the rest of the information, which is gonna save you time on doing this as well. As you can read here on this, you only need 2 fields. So if you don't have the IPAF ID because you didn't type it, or the customer says, oh yeah, I mean the student says, yeah, I downloaded the app and I created my account, and you may only have the email and the date of birth. Okay, you put here the email, and you can check it as well. So you're only gonna need 2 fields. The date of birth and any other field to actually do the check on this one. So if I click on this one, it's gonna do anything because I'm not here in the system, I think. Just gonna try. So it's not doing anything because I don't have it. So all the other information that you have here, it's familiar to you. So this is all the same. You wanna check this. All this information is gonna auto-populate with the booking. I mean, this is all the information that you already know. That being said, if you do not have this information because, oh, I forgot to do the IPAF ID thing with the students and they don't have it, don't worry about it. You can just fill in the application as you usually do, in putting all the information, the e-learning receipt number, and all the information there, and process the application as usual. The candidate will be able to download the app on a later date, create the account on a later date, so the EPAL can be linked to the account on a later date. That's not recommended because it implies that's gonna be some weak links in the chain that might be that you're gonna be losing time anyway in the future. So important that this is one of the big changes on adding the application. So, okay, if you have any questions, now's the time. Now's the time. We have a lot of questions right now in the chat, Tony. So you can start reading those. We're gonna answer everything at the end of the PDS. So I'm gonna go back. So that's the adding of the application. You do it as usual. You send the information, and we're gonna process it the next day. The other major thing that I show you is going to be the distribution portal. And this is going to look way nicer, way cleaner, because this is actually done on the newer platform, which that's why it's going to look like even like the LMS. I think the physical of it is like the LMS, because we want to migrate at the end all the TCAS into a nicer, more easier way for you to process this and try to automate as much as possible so you don't lose time on this. So this is the distribution portal. This is where you will see all the, right when you joined the distribution portal, you will see the list of all the active, all the licenses you've done in the past, not just the new ones, but all the ones you've done in the past. And automatically all the licenses you've done in the past are gonna be, released automatically, complete automatically. So you're not gonna have those issues. So you're going to see IPAF numbers when you enter the information, the name, the distribution status, which is going to show you if it's pending to distribute or if it's completed, meaning that the student already has the PAL card, when you distributed the card, who was the instructor or the instructors who delivered the training, the categories this student is trained on, when was the course, if the license is active or not, or needs renewal, and also the PO number, which is the number you input when you add the application. This is going to be here for you as well. And it's here because it's going to make it easier for you to add filters and filter out and search for people within the distribution portal, okay? Here at the top, you have 3 tabs, and the first tab is going to be the dashboard, which is the information I show you, which is going to give all the numbers of how many licenses you've issued in a given month. We're going to try to provide, as we upgrade the system, because this is going to be a continued upgrade, we're going to try to provide you with more data on which categories are you doing the most, if operators, if you're doing supervisors, everything's going to be here. Right now it's going to focus on operator training, which is going to appear here. Let me get some water. You will also see if you have some licenses pending of release, if there's some notifications there as well. If you have satellites, you're going to see them here as well. So you can filter this information by the satellite or branch of your training center. So right now it looks like pretty basic information. We're going to continue to upgrade so you can get more, but it's something you didn't have before. It was something that you needed to do the math and do this as well.
Diego,
yes,
a question was out there is, will expired licenses be displayed?
Yes. Yes, you will still need to communicate this to the user. They will get a notification in their ePulse that they are expired, like soon to be expired and everything, but the communications.
So right now, when we turn the system on and a training center has trained for many years, beyond 5 years,
yeah,
will their system show all the expired licenses?
Yeah.
And secondly, so the answer to that is yes. And if someone who has a PAL card that's expired past 5 years ago, will they still be able to go over there and use the ePal app and show an expired?
That's
PAL
right.
card?
Yes, the Ipaf ID, it's like a separate thing to the actual certifications that the user have. So even if they have an expired license, they will still have that showing in the record on the ePal, so they will get notified by the app to renew their license because it's about to expire, because as you know, you have to renew them before they expire. So this will be something that they have.
So if they pull their PAL card up, it's not going to have any designation saying expired outside of the date, is going to be outside of the expert of the
Yes.
current
Yes.
5-year period.
Yes, as you said, what they have to do, especially training centers who've been training for a while now, and now they're getting people to renew. They have to, if they want to track those people, they need to go into the TCAS, go to view applications, filter out a certain date, grab that whole list of candidates, and email them like, hey, so right now it's a manual process, and that bit is going to continue to be manual, but now the students will have that reminder as well, so it will potentially will come from them to renew rather than you having to chase that. Okay.
Okay, and then there's a question: if you are a manager of employees who went through the IPAF operator training, does the manager have the ability to see several of their operators' logs?
That's not yet a feature that we have, but we are exploring to have that feature because it's been requested, which is a manager having the ability to check on logbooks and keep track of them and making sure their operators are filling in those information. So that's something that we're working on. Certainly it's been requested. At this point, what they can do is just share that information, showing you that they've been doing it. And I mean, we certainly think that's a feature that needs to be added. But of course, Giles will have more information on this one. Okay, so we can carry on this one. So going back to the licenses tab, which is gonna be the main tab that you're gonna be working at, because it's the tab where you're gonna actually release the cards to the customers. So before I go into every aspect of it, the first thing that you wanna check is go here at the top right and go to preferences. And these are super important preferences because it's gonna actually allow you to select if you want to do automatic release of cards. This means that when we process the cards and authorize them and upload them into the system, the student's gonna automatically receive this. So it's not gonna go through a process that you need to check and keep track on and release them manually. And we have this in manual by default because maybe some people are doing the training, but the customer hasn't paid in full yet and they want to wait. So they have these gates, they have this ability. We're giving you control to manage if you actually want to provide the card to the customer. If you always get paid up front, if you don't want to mess with releases, if you don't want to add this to the workload, which is not a lot, you can just put this in automatic and forget about it. All the licenses that you actually submit to the portal are gonna, once they're done, are gonna go to the customer immediately. And there's two things that are gonna happen. So if they already got the Ipaf ID and the EPAL, the PAL card's gonna appear in their phones and they're gonna get notified by it. If they do not have the EPAL on their phones, they're gonna get information that they need to download the app, create an account, and then they will get the actual PAL card. So it's two things that can happen. Also, you can activate and deactivate notifications if you want to have, if you're doing manual and you get notified of IPAF is sending you, hey, this batch is ready for you to release. You can have notifications per batch on a daily basis, weekly. We recommend by batch because most of the time you're doing, you have a group of 10 people or a batch, if you will, sending out, and once that batch is done, you have it. You're not doing like 10 batches a day, so this can help you out, or maybe some of you will. And where do you want this information to go? So pretty important preferences here as well. So you want to make sure you save the changes once you click and change this information. You want to click on this and save the changes, and now you will have all that you need here on the portal. So all the training that we approve, all the applications that are processed are going to appear here, and they're going to appear here as in pending, meaning that they haven't been released to the customer. And you will have the ability to release them simply as just clicking on here and clicking this yellow thing, and this will send the card to the customer like right away. Oh, there you go. I was missing this tab. You can also do it manually by clicking this in the Actions tab here at the end. If you hover it, it's gonna say release license, release license. So if I, for example, click on this one, it's gonna release the license. So it's done. It's already been done. You don't need to do anything. It's gonna change the status to complete. Same if I click on here the selection and click on release, it's gonna release this license. I'm sure this is a dummy account and I'm not releasing this live for someone. I hope so. So you will see that all of the licenses are released now as well. And you will have also the ability to copy this information. Maybe you want to send to the manager, hey, all your students have their certificates, sent to them, and you can copy all of this information. You can select all of these guys and export. And this is gonna export this to an Excel sheet or to a PDF. That's gonna send the record out. And the record's gonna be this information that you see here, and also a link so that they can see the actual PDF of the certificate, which I'm opening one right now. There you go. So they will be able to see this PDF, which is also the way that you will get this information if you want to print those out yourself to give to the customer as well in a physical state. Okay, so this is the new certificates, because the older ones didn't have the actual image of the pallet card here. So these ones have that information there. Okay, and you will get this, remember, in Actions. In the last tab here in Actions, it's going to be this little like card that you can see here, and you can see download PDF, download PDF, download PDF. You can also use the share, so you can share the records in an email, all the records. We can generate some PDFs as well and some information there in the system. Oh, there you go. So all this information, it's gonna be available to you as well. You can get, for example, I have here communication history, so that's gonna show that Vicky Tassart got an email saying your IPAF license is ready. So you can see communication history if you, for example, you get because this is gonna happen. I can assure you this is gonna happen. Somebody's gonna tell you, hey, Tony Groth is yelling on the phone that he didn't get the license. So you can go back in here and check. So, oh, maybe the email is wrong, or maybe there's something there as well. And you can just resend that information to him, send a new message, or send another communications. But here you can keep track of where this information, and this is an example of what they're gonna receive. Of course, it's gonna be the number of the training. Here it says IPAF testing because that's, but here is gonna be the actual name of the training center, of your training center, and it's gonna have all the information that you need to download the application and have everything. So as you can see, everything is pretty like automated at some level for you to don't have to do a lot of work in the distribution portal. There's a bit more information here that's role management, which is at this point, if you don't have it already, you should have renewed, if you will, your credentials for accessing the TCAS. So I'm gonna share with you at the end of my presentation a link to the TCAS, which is the email that you already know, which is ipaf-training.com, and is where you log in to the TCAS. If you have any trouble getting in the system, saying we don't recognize, or you have any troubles, just send me an email, because we need to renew your, basically, if you're not logging in with an email, you need to send me an email, because the updated system, it's giving profile control to the TCAS. What I mean by that is Diego has an account to access a certain training center, but also Tony has an account to access that same training center. So if you have a training centers, which is not the case of all of you, but if you have a training center who has 2 training administrators constantly booking, constantly distributing, constantly adding applications, now each of them will have their own credentials to access the system, and this will provide you with information. So if somebody, touching wood, but if somebody is messing up release or puts a name wrong, you're gonna have the data there to see a log of who was in at certain points, what happened there, who is doing this. So you will have role management here as well to see. Right now, we only have one training center, but if I go here to role management, here where you see this little cog here, role management, because this is a test of IPAF test thing, is going to be a lot of people, a lot of users go into the system, and you can see the roles, which mostly are going to be admin, TC admin, but you will have this information. And if you have somebody in your organization that's going to now work with a training center, you don't need to email me like you used to, saying, hey, Diego, I have this person that's going to now be the admin. You have the control yourself to invite a new user to be an administrator in the tickets. So a new way for you to work on this. Again, I'm just scratching the surface. Once you get familiar, once you start releasing licenses, once you get in the portal, once you start doing the work, it's going to stick to you. And it was important for me to show you live what you will see on a day-to-day basis when you are actually doing the training. Of course, many questions will arise once you are actually doing this live. So as I always say in my emails, I'm here for you, happy to help, whatever you need. So I'm going to go back right now to the presentation to conclude, because I think I'm good with time, but this is a very important piece of information that you will need. And of course, this will be recorded, so you can go back here and hear me as well again. Super duper important that you communicate the change of EPAL to your customers, to the people you work with, to if you have, of course, other instructors within your training center, other evaluators within your structure, you need to communicate all this information, send them the recording, everything that they need. And starting with sales and marketing, you need to communicate with your customers. You understand their needs right now. So some of your customers, you already know if they would be willing to accept a digital license of their don'ts. So understanding their needs, it will help you communicate this. You can have digital with a physical option. So this is very important to frame. All licenses are digital. They have a physical option. So you frame it that way, it's going to be way easier for you to understand how the process works. We have a lot of information. We have the EPAL leaflet. We have marketing stuff that we're gonna share with you. If you haven't already received this within the EPAL communications email, there's a toolkit. It's just like EPAL toolkit, which is gonna contain the leaflet, which is a digital version that you can, if you want, you can grab all the information in there and convert it as your own, put your logo in there, and share with your customers, okay? So you can get them to download the app as soon as possible. Also for the people that you already trained and are big players within your training pool of customers. Tell them, hey, we now have, you remember the training I did with you back in October, whatever. You can now download the app and have all this information, because it's, as I said, it's not just the PAL, it's not just the EPAL, which is logbook, all the information that they have. So important that you communicate this, because this is a value added thing that now you can market with them. Okay. Your role as a license distributor, again, releasing the licenses, communicate with your customers, all what we have. You're processing the applications, use the autofill, use the auto-populate, using the Ipaf ID. So make sure, communicate to the evaluators, instructors, that now you need to add this 5 minutes of your time to let them know that they need to download the app. And once you do it yourselves, so when you download the app and create your account, you're gonna see how easy that is. And you're gonna find out that this is gonna be 2 minutes of the training time. That's gonna save you probably maybe 20 minutes when you're uploading applications, maybe 10 minutes. So it's worth it.
If I can interject, I would say that they could also ask them to download it even before they come into the class. This is a pre-requirement to coming in, and hopefully they'll get it done. Are you done with this, or?
You want me to be done, right, Tony?
No, I don't. I wanted to add some stuff to it.
Give 5 minutes, and we'll answer all of your questions. Always pushing me, Tony. Okay, so this is for the application processing. Again, we have all the support that you're gonna need with guidance to how to use the new systems. We have, as I said, the Training Center Toolkit. If you don't have it already, send me an email and I will send it to you right away. This is gonna be all the marketing you need to put on your website and everything. Within the app, there's a really nice support, which is somebody else in another part of the world, like responding and helping people with the app. So if somebody has a problem with the app saying, hey, I can't log in, it doesn't recognize my license, the Ipaf support is amazing. It's answering like super quick and doing some stuff that if you email me or Tony, it's gonna be a couple of emails. It's maybe gonna take a couple of days or a day. If you do it through the app, I can assure you, your customer is gonna be way happier because it's gonna be way easier and quicker to resolve their problems. Common questions that we have on the Ipaf, which is something that you might have. So what if the candidate does not have access to a smartphone? Of course, the physical card is still available for those who do not have a mobile device. If a person does not require a physical card when the application is made, can it be requested at a later date? Yes, you can order the physical card at a later date for the standard replacement prices that you know. Does Ipaf cover MC and Hoist training? Yes, the app will cover all IPAF categories and classifications. Will Ipaf allow instructors to complete their CPD, which is what Tony was talking about before, the continuous professional development points? It's not something included in this first version of the app, but this is highly considered to be a future development for the app. If training courses are completed on different days, can this be displayed with different expiration days on the same card? Yes, hard yes. Are we still using paper assessment booklets? Sadly, currently the physical paperwork is still required to be completed. However, we are identifying that we want to develop digital forms in the future. So the training assessment booklet, your piece of paper, is going to be still used. The logbook and the OSGs are phasing out, so you're not going to be longer need those. So what this means, that you no longer need to buy training kits to do the training, which is savings for you when using the Ipaf. I will talk a bit about pricing in the next slide. Will you be able to add other training cards on the app? And what I mean by this is maybe other training providers, other maybe trainers. So at this stage of the app, we don't have that, but we are talking to introduce additional training options in future versions of the app. Talking about pricing, it's not something that's really changed. So we are not increasing the price of the card. And what I mean by this is that the Ipaf is going to be $38.50, which is what you already paid right now, $38.50, but you already have to pay for the booklets. So you pay $38.50 plus 10, 8, or $6, I'm sorry, for that. So if you add those two costs, it's going to be $40-something for each candidate. So the physical card, it's gonna be $47.50 by March 6th. Right now, it's like a grace period where the Ipaf and the plastic cards are gonna stay in the same price from January 6th to March 6th, which is the grace period that we are managing right now. So those are the two things. So super important that you can save this. It's not a price increase. Is if you opt to do the Ipaf, you're actually saving 10 or $8 when using the Ipaf. When using the plastic, it's gonna stay the same what you already paid right now. So pretty important, because some people hear, oh, now it's $47.50 per card, per certification. Yes, but now it's putting those two things together. You're not buying the leaflets and you're not buying the booklets and the logbooks, but there are some administrative costs that need to be covered for still doing the physical licenses as well. And then there you have as well the physical replacement card, which is $9. So if somebody wants to have a physical thing after 3 months of having the training, having the EPAL, we will charge the training center $9. You can charge your customer whatever you want. So this is for closing my session. There's our email, our information. So if you have any more questions, if you need anything, all the assistance, we try to do it as fast as possible. Before I go, this is you all see that now when you type in IPAF-training.com, this is the new phase of the login. You don't have the remote user access. You don't need to select your region or anything. Make sure you select the language here at the top right, and then you log in. As I said before, if you go to this address and you type in your usual credentials and you can't log in, shoot me an email right now and I will get that sorted, and you will have your access tomorrow, which is now going to be with your email as the username. Thank you very much. I'm happy to thank you all for listening. I know my English is not the best, but I try. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Diego. Would you do me a favor and just go back? I was going to say,
Yep.
Go back on your slide to the
Which
pricing
one?
slide for a second.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So again, as Diego said, it is our desire that we eliminate the plastic wallet PAL card and certificates. And that's indicated by us saying that you're going to get those digitally, and it's $38.50, which is saving you the cost of over what you're currently required to do, which is $38.50 for the PAL card, plus the operator safety guide, which is either $6, $8, or $10 each based on volume. And now you can get rid of that. If you want to continue to get those, you can get the hard copies and the ePAL for the $48.50. If you go down and you look at replacement PAL cards, for the physical PAL cards, that's if somebody says at a later date or they want to replace one, they're $9 each. The physical certificates are for those courses like MUP supervisors. It's not going to be, they don't get a PAL card to begin with. So there's a certificate that's given to those. Diego, is the MUP supervisor course, is that going to be digital where they get the certificates?
Yeah, they will get the same certificate, the paper one, well, the digital PDF that they get when they finish up, and they can add that to the EPAL as well. So they will add the MUP for managers, supervisor training through the app.
Well, I'm saying if someone's only doing supervisor training, they can
use the EPAL as well.
Right. Okay. So basically, we're trying to get rid of it. As I said, it is tied to one of IPAF's overall goals, which is sustainability, to eliminate paperwork and waste. So I'm hoping that all of our training centers will immediately convert to only using the ePAL and eliminate the card. But as I said, we also recognize that for whatever reasons, people like to have a copy for their wall, or people like that. You could print, they can print them out. When you're looking at the digital application, if somebody says, hey, do you have a PAL card? They can actually send a copy of their PAL card to somebody. So, digitally is how we're trying to move everything forward. And we hope that everyone supports that. And we think that it'll work out better for everybody. And as I said, at the end of the day, it's saving you cost, and we're eliminating waste through all the materials that are going to go away. And it is our plan, as I said, by hopefully by year end 2022, to move forward with a digitization of the forms, meaning getting rid of the assessment booklets and testing, and have that being done digitally as well. And you can see how all this information can float. Why it's taking us a long time is we end up having all these systems. We have the TCAS system, we have the LMS, we have our own internal system for billing, and we're trying to get these things to be able to integrate and talk to one another. And that's why it takes us a little bit longer to push some of these automated systems through. So thanks for putting that up, Diego. So again, if anybody has any questions, that's we're here. I would say while Diego was nice saying that you can call him or me, if you call me, I'm going to say, okay, thank you. I'll have Diego get a hold of you when it comes to the to these types of issues.
Yeah, call me directly. You're going to save some precious time.
All right. So I'm going to move now on to our next thing. Let's see. And again, just to reinforce, anybody who already has a PAL card out in the marketplace, they can actually go over there and log in and get their PAL cards digitally as well. So I think I think Diego did a great job of covering all those issues. But as we know, the minute you go to do it for the first time yourself, it's kind of like feed me a fish and I'm good for the day. Teach me how to fish and then you feed me for life. Well, really, that's what we're here. We're trying to make you independent. So whatever we need to do to assist you, both Diego and I are here to assist. Okay, so let me see.
Beyond the Standards by Tony Groth.
Beyond the Standards.
Make sure you share the sound. Remember that.
Oh, hold on. Gotta disengage subtitles. Got to go up here. Disable anything.
Are the three dots right?
Yeah. It's not giving me share sound. Okay.
Yeah, it's like trying to guide a blind man through a minefield.
No more compliments. Okay, so really the point to have is one of my favorite saying is the devil is in the detail, and when we talk about things, we can sometimes make things very simple, and I think it's appropriate to try to make things as uncomplicated as possible, but sometimes we need to make sure that we understand things beyond the surface as well. So MUPs are designed to the same standards, but they all don't operate the same way. The requirements are performance-based, meaning that we must comply with the requirements to perform a certain way, such as meeting stability requirements. But you're going to go out and look at the different machines, and there's a large variation between manufacturer A and manufacturer B in the way that some of these things operate. So in these differences are things that we need to consider when we're out there training and providing people information. Okay. Thank you. So industry safe use standards specify requirements for the application, inspection, training, maintenance, repair, and safe operation of mobile elevated work platforms. Many requirements need specific recommendations from the manufacturer that are provided in the operator's manual, which are specific to each model MU. So if you read and understand the standards, it doesn't mean that you really understand how machines operate, because they are specific to each individual model. So there's layers that we have to go through to get this understanding. So we look at things, so we know what familiarization is, which is going over the operator operations manual, pointing out that is the operating controls and operating characteristics of the machine. And it's required for them to use it, which goes over features, functions, devices, limiting devices. The ANSI standards also require that users allow the operator time after familiarization to actually become proficient in its operation. But this is where critical unit-specific knowledge not provided through general operator training should occur. But I want to look at an example of where this is not taking place and operators at risk. So one of the items that has become a focal point for me is the functionality of oscillating axles. So oscillating axles are a feature that is commonly fitted on scissor lifts and boom lifts for operating on uneven, rough terrain. An oscillating axle system allows a MUP to keep all the wheels in contact with the ground. It's not intended to level the machine. So sometimes people think that it's meant for leveling the chassis, and it's exclusively for providing traction. And so you see a couple of pictures of a machine, and you look up at the top one, there's non-oscillating axle, and you can see the rear axle floating in the air. And here on the bottom, you see one with oscillating axle. It rolls up on an unlevel terrain, and it is still in motion. So hopefully you're going to be able to hear this presentation, but this I think is gives a good oversight. So this was done by ManLift, and I've just stolen it. And if you can't hear it, just watch what it's saying.
Video to explain.
We can listen, Tony.
Can you hear it?
And without oscillating axle feature.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of MUPs here where we're going to show how we can drive up a ramp or an undulating surface with the oscillating axle actually working. And then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to disconnect the oscillating axle, and you'll see how the machine struggles without oscillating axle for this terrainability. You'll see the differences. Footage of the wheels not spinning.
But while you're watching this, really understand that this is part of the consideration for the MUP selection as well. So does my machine need oscillating axles?
With oscillating axle enabled, even though the ramp's a bit steep there, you can still see how it was able to terrain up that steep slope relatively easily because the axle is floating, allowing all four wheels to stay on the ground and all four wheel motors to do their work and climb that gradient. Okay, now we're going to disconnect, and you'll see the difference when the oscillating axle is disabled.
But notice that wheel's just spinning without oscillating axle. It's not in contact or not getting traction.
So that was an example. We disconnected the oscillating axle. So we're driving up undulated surface, and you can see that because there's no oscillating axle, all four drive motors aren't able to do the work they need to do. They're not on the ground properly. They haven't got traction, so we lose terrainability because the axle's not floating, helping us to keep all four wheels on the ground and allow the four-wheel drive to do its work. This is why we have less terrainability. You saw that the MUP was unable to climb the ramp, and it only got a little way up the ramp before it struggled because we had wheels lifting off the ground. So with this MUP, speed level 2684 RT, similar thing. The ramp is a bit steep for the actual flotation. You can see that it was still able to terrain up that undulating surface. Okay, and also one thing which we're not really demonstrating so much in this video, but we can show that, is that the ride is actually smoother. So if I'm driving over a curve or rough ground, because the axle's floating, I get a much smoother ride. If the axle's locked out, the ride is much more harsh. So there's two benefits of oscillating axle: increased terrainability and a smoother ride for the operator. So this example of oscillating axle and its features and how it adds terrainability to a MUP. We use two MUPs as an example in this exercise. We use the speed level and the JLG 330 LRT, so the max speed level and the JLG 330 LRT. We did a forward and reverse just to see the similarity of with oscillating axle and with oscillating axle disenabled, and you can see there's a clear advantage in terrainability of it climbing undulating surfaces with oscillating axle feature enabled. It can climb more rough ground, it has better terrainability, and it's a key feature of rough terrain MUPs, oscillating axle feature. Plus, if I was driving over rough ground in a faster speed and I had a lot of bumps and debris on the ground and maybe going over some dirt and sand, I would have a much smoother and more controllable ride with oscillating axle because I wouldn't be bouncing around on the platform so much. So the operator has a better chance of controlling the MUP correctly with oscillating axle feature when he's getting from point A to point B in a transport position. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So hopefully that showed you some of the value. So when we're actually choosing oscillating axles. Yep. There we go. But once oscillating axles are included in the MUP selection, and you can see the value of them, again, it's for traction. It's critical that you consider the task and how the option functions. So as we're talking about this, this is really critical when you're thinking about when you're doing training and we're talking to new operators coming through. How is it that this information is conveyed to them? With most oscillating axle systems, they're passive systems. And by that, we mean that the axles are designed to operate when the MUP is in the travel position. However, based on MUP manufacturers, the oscillating axles will lock when the boom is elevated or rotated or extended. And those options of when they'll lock can vary based on the manufacturer. So in the pictures shown here, you see both a JLG and a Skyjack boom with the oscillating axles locked, and then they drove it when it was in that elevated position. So you can see here, both of the tires are floating and the operators didn't even know how to unlock it. So it's driving around and they think there's something wrong with the machine, where the machines were not intended to be driven when it's on an unlevel surface. These manufacturers want these machines to be driven on a hard level surface. So if you go to again to the operator's manual, when you're traveling, trying to get it into position over those different ground conditions, great to get you there, and oscillating axles help you with that traction. But when you go and you have it in an unlevel position and you drive, you can see here, this is what it was like when they elevated it and they drove it, locked in these positions. So that's what a passive system is. So here's an example of the system, and this is a passive system. So the oscillating axle is working, and now they rotated the boom, and now it's locked. So now, again, they drove it in level conditions and the oscillating axle allows them to get there, but they rotate it, now it's locked that way. And now what happens, he drives it before he unlocks it. And now you can see that that is locked and that's rotating. And that's because the system itself is not designed to be driven in an unlevel condition like that. And in order for him to unlock it when it's in a passive system, he needs to actually take it back to its drive position, which is you got to rotate it back. Now in this particular case, he's smart that he's not going to have it drop down like you would in these two configurations, but he's now going to rotate it back into the drive position. That will unlock it, and he's able to have it active again. So again, with passive systems, operators, users don't know how to unlock them. They don't even know that they're getting locked. So they're driving them around. Here's a situation where someone sent me a picture. They're going over and look at this. They had to put blocking underneath it because they didn't know how to unlock it. They think the machine is not operating properly. They're driving it around this way. So really it's a function of understanding and reading the operator's manual. And in reality, they actually have in your daily pre-start inspections, a criteria to show how these are locking or not locking. So if someone were actually reading the manuals and doing their daily pre-start inspections, they would know about these things. But I have all these examples of pictures. We've had people who called and said, get the machines off of our job site because they're not working properly. The machines are locking this way. And it's not a function of the machines not operating properly. It's not of them not being functioning the way that they are intended to be functioned. So again, now we look at it, and Genie actually has what's known as active oscillating axles. And it's a feature that's patented, and the hydraulic systems adjust to go into it. So I'm going to hopefully be able to do this. It's one of my buddies.
Hi, my name is Chad Hislop. I'm the Director of Engineering at Genie, and today I would like to talk to you about active oscillating axles, specifically on our boom products and why active oscillating axles make such a big difference. Now we all know that our booms drive across rough terrain, and based on this rough terrain, we've come to expect that on these booms,
Tony, we
on the
can't see the
chassis,
video.
we have
Oh, you
what we
can't see
call
it?
oscillating
No,
axles,
we're just
which
hearing
means
it.
one of the axles, either the front or
All right,
the
well, I
rear
can see it.
axle,
So I
pivots
don't know how
above the
to
chassis,
Just
allowing all
describe
four
it.
wheels to maintain traction on the ground at all times when the boom is stowed.
Well, again, if you go to this link, if you go
Now,
to their
essentially,
website, I'm going to try to
everyone's design for their oscillating
now I know how to
axle
get out of
works
it.
approximately the same when the boom is stowed and you're moving across rough terrain. When it changes for all of the different companies that make booms is when the booms go up. And this is really where Genie sets themselves apart with the active oscillating axle. When everyone else's booms go up, they put in a lock on
the only way I can get out of that one. So give me a second.
the axle.
So again, if you go
measuring
to
the rear
Genie Aero
axle
Pros, you'll
location
actually be able
and
to see this. Can you
feeding
hear me
that back
again,
through the
Diego?
control system to the front axle. And that means we can safely keep active oscillate turned on when the boom is elevated.
We are
So
hearing
what
the
does that
video
do?
for some reason, Tony.
That means if
Oh, are
you're
you? I
elevated
don't know how to stop it
and
now.
drive the machine forward or backward.
Or is it just me? There you go, it's gone.
Oh, is it
Try
gone?
to start your presentation on the next slide.
All right, hold on a second.
Sorry, people, you know, high level productions over here.
Yes, technology at its best. All right. Sure.
oscillating axle when driving elevated in your
All right.
aerial work platform.
You
We
still
can
hear it?
hear it. Yeah.
I don't know how to stop it now.
No, it's not. It's gone. I think it's gone. Yeah, it's
Okay.
gone. Yeah, just don't go back
Okay.
though.
Okay. So really, what my point is between the two of them is you end up having different manufacturers designing machines to the same design standards, but giving you a different operational process within those. So really, what occurs is that you end up having one machine. The majority of machines that are out there are what's known as passive oscillating axles. And the minute you elevate that platform and you rotate that platform, it locks in that position. And if you drive it, if it's on an unlevel surface, the axle is going to lock in that unlevel surface. And the only way that you're going to unlock it is if you bring that boom back into its transport travel position. So it's back over its center and lower down, and then that will actually lower it down and it move ahead. Just as a point of reference, the newest device that's out in the marketplace is put out by JLG, and they now have a self-leveling boom. And actually, as you can see, I was going to put a video in here, but trying to get these things in there and have them work right in these presentations is a challenge. This actually, the boom actually elevates up here. So this chassis actually raises and lowers, and then you end up having this. So this levels the chassis. So you end up having these axles that actually will self-level, so that chassis is going to be level at all times, and it's meant to be driven in the elevated position. Now, is this an expensive option? And the answer is yes. And do you need it at all points in time? It's a time saver, but again, you need to be aware of what's going on in the marketplace. You need to be aware of the fact that we have oscillating axles, and oscillating axles are, again, for traction, not for leveling. This is a self-leveling boom, the only one that's out in the marketplace for these boom type lifts, although there are some other, I'm going to say, niche type machines that do these things as well. So it really is being aware of these particular elements. So that's my scoop for you on raising awareness on this issue of oscillating axles. The next thing I want to do is really talk to you about something that has been part of some of the presentations that we have been putting on, and that's about risk assessments. And hopefully you saw through the presentation on audits, we all are operating MUPs in training, and we need to have a risk assessment in our training program that includes a rescue plan. But specific to the site risk assessment, you see there are 7 stages of a risk assessment, and these stages are defined in the ANSI standards. So identify the task, select the appropriate MUP for the task to be performed, assess the risk, identify control measures, and then identify safe work procedures, then the issue of rescue from height and communicating these things. The challenge that I think is out in the marketplace from my perspective is that people come up with a control measure, but they don't adequately identify the safe work procedures for those. So in this particular example, I'm going to go over and just say that when we're looking at it, the hazard is operating an exterior MUP in winds that exceed 28 miles per hour, just 12 meters per second, which is typically the design criteria for wind stability for MUPs used in an outdoor operation. So if we know that that's a hazard to operate there, what's our control measure? And our control measure could be use an anemometer, which hopefully all training centers have one, to measure the wind speed at the site. So now here's the hazard, wind that is going to exceed the stability factor for the design of the machines. The control measures have an anemometer to measure the wind speed where you are, all right? And so what's our safe work procedures? And this is where I go in and say, this is where you have to fill these things in. You have to go in there and just say, oh, okay, I went and I measured it at the ground level. I measured it at the elevated position. Do I measure it all day long? So think about it that I'm operating it and I'm on the side of a building, and now I extend up above the roof edge. Is the building, if I'm measuring the wind in front of the bit, no wind, and then I exceed and I go above the roof. Now, so am I measuring it all the times? How often do I measure it? Am I looking at the ground? So you need to come up with the safe work procedures so that when the operators are out in the field, they know what it is the expectations are. So if you go out there and say, look at the weather report, I can guarantee you that if you go into an alleyway in between large buildings in the summertime, there's going to be a breeze coming through there. And even though the weather report is not going to indicate that there's any wind, you could have big gust of winds coming between two buildings at different points in times. So really the thing that I'm trying to impress upon you who are doing risk assessments and communicating these to operators is that you need to make sure that your risk assessments have adequate safe work procedures put in place. Now, I'm going to show you this, and this was an unfortunate accident that occurred in 2020. And when I saw this incident, and as I said, part of our action reporting, I saw this incident, and it goes through my mind, how could this happen? But I guess more importantly, the question was, how could this been avoided? So when I look at this, I add that at least 2 fatalities of electrocution occurred in rental yards, people who work with this equipment daily in the last 2 years. So one of the first things I noticed in this picture is that all of the electrical lines are booted with insulators. And so what does that tell you? And for me, it says that they're aware of the hazard. They were aware of the hazard, that they actually put insulators on those, but nonetheless, it didn't eliminate the hazard. So where are those safe work procedures? So what else could have been done? And again, we went over, we did a risk assessment, and we said, oh, you have to be working near them, and let's boot the wires. And obviously, it didn't eliminate the hazard. So proper selection of the mute. Should they have used an insulated aerial device? Would they have been better off with a straight mass boom rather than an articulated boom? And again, I don't have, I didn't do an accident investigation here. I have the same picture in front of me that you're seeing to make an analysis on. But safe work procedures, knowing that they needed to work closer than 10 feet from the power source, should they have had a ground person to monitor the movement near that line? Because here you can see it's the boom itself that got stuck on this, actually caught on it and knocked the insulator off, and the machine became hot. So should they have a ground person on this? What was the hazard, risk, and safe work procedure for communicating it to all the parties involved? I mean, did that operator know that, okay, there's a hazard over here, and even though we have these on, you really can't contact us. You can't be in contact with them. What was the rescue procedure in place for this? When this machine became hot, did they account for that in any of their rescue procedures? So really, again, going back into this, identify the safe work procedures, I really think that that's an element that most people need to pay more attention to, because even though we go over we think we have the solution to the hazard, use an anemometer, boot the wires. If we don't have safe work procedures to address it in totality, we're going to be missing some of the procedures that will maintain individual safety. So, so when I'm looking at this, and again, I go back to what Martin actually brought about when he was talking about potentially letting the operators leave with a copy of a blank risk assessment so that he can go out there and bring it back to his company. So the question I have is, when we're doing these tasks, the risk assessment as an example, in our practicals, are we telling these candidates or are we teaching these candidates? And, so, you have a limited time with these candidates, and the moments that you have with them can provide some invaluable information in learning and development. So again, I think that, the risk assessments are considered something that somebody else does. We know that we do them when we're operating equipment, and we operate it during MUP operations. Modeling that with our trainees is critical. So I just am reinforcing the value of how you can spend a few more minutes on these topics with these candidates and potentially provide them with some valuable information that can provide them with a greater level of risk assessing when they go back out into the field. I want to add to this further that one of the courses that's out there is for MUP supervisor training. And in our standards in section 6.2.3 and A92.2 2020, it has supervisor training as a requirement. All personnel that directly supervise MUP operators shall receive training. IPAF has had this course out for now several years. And so the first question I ask everyone who is an instructor is, have you taken the course? And then I would ask additionally is, are you offering this on your website? So when we go out there and we look at the operator who we have a very limited period of time to train, he's going to go out there, and if his supervisor isn't aware of all the rules and regulations, if they're not aware of all the things that we've kind of reviewed in the course of today, what is the likelihood that that operator is going to be on a machine that's the correct machine for his task, that he has all of the identified hazards identified with correct methods to mitigate those risks, and adequate safe use procedures to implement those. And this is really, what I consider an obligation for us to provide a systemic approach, that it's not just getting the operator trained and everything is done. It's that we have an obligation to go out there and make sure that safe operations occur, and it occurs in multiple places. So, again, I talked about the selection and operation of oscillating axles. And, so again, selection of it, okay, I got an oscillating axle, but you can see that the instructions through familiarization on the proper use of those, I have seen over the years that the users aren't aware of it, because when that machine is locking the axle in position because they drove it inappropriately in an unlevel condition, they don't know how to unfix it. They think the machine is broken. So this is where these things come into play. It really is the ability to enhance the overall knowledge in the marketplace. And I really do encourage all of you to really approach the people who are sending their trainees, their operator trainees in, to encourage them to complete courses like this. And again, this is 100% online. So you can put this on your website. You can say, here, give me a credit card, pay for this, and they take it. It's 100% online. When they successfully complete it, they get a certificate of completion. So again, it really is something that is just out there again, promoting the safe and effective use of powered access equipment. One of the things that I would say over my many years with IPAF, I have been deficient upon is being here to really help our training centers plan for the year. And so I'm out here just saying that, you know, the ideal thing for us in getting things done is to make sure that we have a plan in place and then implement that plan. So I think that there's a tremendous potential that's out there. One of the things that I tried to articulate in part of the earlier presentations is that the IPAF training program has to comply with industry standards the same way every other training program that is out there is supposed to do. And I think that there are lots of good training courses out there in addition to IPAFs. But the one significant difference is that IPAF has processes and procedures to verify and audit to ensure that those things are being done on an ongoing basis. So it's not like we train the instructor, here's the course, and see ya. We stay involved with it on an ongoing basis. And the reason we stay involved with it is the identification of those things that we can all improve upon to ensure that we are doing things the best way we can. So I'm out here encouraging all of you as training centers to utilize Diego, myself, and anyone else from IPAF to assist you in creating a plan for your training for 2020. If I'm going out and looking at it and saying, you know, you trained 20 people last year, or you trained 100 people last year, the question is, how is it, what's our plan for this year? Are we going to be doing more training or not? And I think with the new standards that are out there, I think a lot of people have not gotten their employees who are operating this equipment trained to the new requirements and awareness of those things in the new regulations. So when I look at as a very simple thing, which is operators now must provide occupant knowledge to anyone getting into the machine, including as part of the risk fall protection plan is to instruct them on how to lower the machine, the occupant, how to lower it, not make them an operator, but how to lower it in the case of an emergency. So, you know, there's all these elements that are out there. And so I'm encouraging you to think about it. You know, give me a call if I can work with you and help you in any way. We're out here to try to, you know, make sure that the most effective training that can be provided in the marketplace is out there, and we're able to provide that through our program. And again, I'd love to see all of us going out there and reaching more operators and ensuring that they're going to be safe and effective in the operation of their equipment. Another key issue during 2021, the IPAF North American Council spent a good deal of time with a lot of experts developing a MUP specific safe use plan guide. So again, in the ANSI A92.22 standard, and if you're in Canada, it also is in section 4.2. It requires the development of a safe use program specific to MUPs to be developed by the user of the equipment. And within this plan, we now have this guidebook that comes over there, and you can see here in the table of contents, it's an overview, developing risk assessments, proper MUP selection, site access, preparation and maintenance, rescue plans, training, familiarization and authorization of operators, maintenance, inspection and repairs, site-specific requirements, train supervisors to evaluate operators' proficiency, unauthorized use, safety of others, documentation. All of those are components that must be in place in order to ensure safe and effective MUP operations. So an operator is one piece of that equation, one piece of it. And there's a lot of components that are in here, which is why we're now going out there and saying, look, we need to help the operators be effective and safe out in the workplace. If he's given the wrong piece of equipment that won't reach the work that he has to do, and 100% of the job site locations, he's at risk. And so again, we're trying to make sure that we're taking a very, and the word I use is systemic approach to ensuring that these things take place. So I encourage you to look at this, because if you are in a company that has people who use this equipment on an ongoing basis, you need to have a MUP specific safe use plan. If you're dealing with customers who operate this, they're employers of MUP operators, they need to have one of these plans in place. And I will guarantee you that the application of this program parallels with one of the overarching supporting programs we have with OSHA, which is developing safe use programs for all of your operations. And when you look over these items in here, a risk assessment applies to all tasks being completed. Proper equipment selection applies to any equipment that you're using. Site risk assessment and preparation and maintenance applies to all types of equipment. So while there are some parameters in here that are MUP specific, the fact that this equipment drives over all types of terrains to get to and forth, we kind of talked about it a little bit in the issue of oscillating axles. Again, it applies to all broad operational safety for any site. So I do encourage you to look at this. This is downloadable. I encourage you to put it on your websites and make it available to your customers. So again, we have these tools. We spend a lot of time and energy and resources to create them. And there's nothing worse, in my opinion, to having a great tool sitting on the shelf and no one's using it. It's not a great tool if that's how it's being used. So I want to raise your awareness to this tool. And as I said, at the end of this, my last retort here is that Diego and my job is to support you. So I oftentimes, get, a member training center saying, "Yeah, I hate to bother you. I know you're busy." And the answer is, you are what I'm here for, or what Diego was there for. Our intent is only to be here to help you become more effective at what you do, to assist you in doing the things that you need to do related to mobile elevated work platforms. So, we try to, bring up in these presentations some of the things that we're doing. We have all these different courses that IPAF internationally is creating. We have all of these tools that we're creating, such as the Andy Access posters and toolbox talks. The Safe Use Program Guide. So we have all these things that are out here, but if these aren't things that you want or need, and if there's something else that you want or need, we're here to listen to you. And even though we do these presentations, we do a lot of talking. Our hope in our talking is to raise awareness, to make sure that we are making you, I'm going to say, more effective at the task that you need to undertake. And to the level that we can expand on that and help further, that's exactly what we are here to do. So I would say kind of concludes my presentation. And let me see. Oh, you can trade that to the main screen. Someone's given me insights on how I could have probably shown that presentation better. So I don't know if you have everybody on silence, or Diego, or can we
No,
open up?
we have, I mean, I can allow everybody to talk if they want to say something. If
So
anyone
again,
wants to comment something, I can open their mics. There's a question. I don't know if you can see Maureen's question. Thank you, Maureen, for your comments. You're always too kind to us. Can you see Maureen's question, Tony?
yeah, the answer, let's see.
It's about the cost of the audits.
The audits should be quoted before, but we do have a set fee for audits. But I would say that it's been our premise that if we can lower the cost to do things, and remote audits would be an example, that ought to be reflected appropriately. Understand that I am the judge and jury a little bit when processes in North America flow through and they bump heads a little bit with our international guidelines. So again, the answer is, to the level that we can control the cost, they should be lowered for you.
Especially virtual.
Yeah. So if we could lower the cost virtually, the answer is yes. But I would say that before they come out, normally they should be giving you a cost for these audits, so you should know about it before they enter your door. So if you have an issue with it, those are the things that you call me up on, and I can look into. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So at this point, as we said, this session has been.
Thank you, Scott, for your comments.
Every time I try to do this. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So again, I think the issue that we have is that this has been a recorded session. So if you want to play it back, obviously even the details that Diego gave on the EPAL and how to use that, that's there for you to utilize in the future as you're moving forward, or any of the other information that's in there. Anybody who missed it will be able to see it. So I would say we appreciate your time. We appreciate your support. If there's anything that we can do, Diego and I are more than eager to assist you any way we can. So if that's it, I would say the session is over. And thank you for your time.
Bye, everybody.